Hey story enthusiasts! This is Harry FLX bringing you another gem. In this video, we present to you what if Andromeda Tonks found baby Harry first and raised him in secret while falling forbidden in love with the boy who lived. If you enjoy these stories as much as we enjoy sharing them, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let's dive in. Chapter 1, Stolen. The baby was crying. Andromeda Tonks stood in the ruins of what had been a cottage, her wand casting pale light across broken walls and shattered furniture, and she listened to that tiny, desperate wail coming from somewhere beneath a collapsed beam. She shouldn't be here. Ted thought she was visiting a friend in London. She'd told him she needed a night away from the crying. Their own daughter, Nymphadora, was teething and miserable, and Andromeda had claimed she couldn't take another sleepless night. Lies. All of it. She'd felt the magical shockwave from Wales. Every witch and wizard in Britain probably had. Something massive had happened, something that tore at the fabric of reality itself, and Andromeda had known in her bones, that it involved her sister's master. So she'd operated to Godric's Hollow on instinct, following the residual magic like a hunting dog following blood. And found this. The dark mark hung sickly green above the destroyed house. James Potter lay crumpled at the base of the stairs, his glasses cracked, his eyes open and empty. Andromeda had stepped over his body with clinical detachment. She'd never liked James, too arrogant, too cruel to Severus even if Severus had made his own terrible choices, but she'd paused when she found Lily. Lily Potter had died in front of a crib. Her body was sprawled as if she'd thrown herself between the crib and something else. Her red hair fanned across the floor like blood. And in the crib, somehow still intact when everything else was destroyed, a baby cried. Andromeda reached him now, pulling aside debris with her bare hands, ignoring the splinters and the dust. The boy looked up at her with shocking green eyes, Lily's eyes, she realized, and a fresh cut on his forehead that was shaped like a lightning bolt. He stopped crying when she picked him up. "Hello, little one," Andromeda murmured, and her voice cracked in a way she hadn't expected. "Hello, Harry." She knew who he was. Everyone in the wizarding world knew the Potters had a son. Everyone knew the prophecy, or at least, whispers of it. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord. Born as the seventh month dies. Andromeda looked around the destroyed nursery. Looked at the pile of robes and ash near the wall that she was very carefully not examining too closely. Looked at the dark mark floating above like a grotesque trophy. The Dark Lord was gone. She could feel it. Whatever had happened here, whatever Lily had done, it had unmade him. And this child, this tiny, miraculous child, had survived. Footsteps outside. Voices. Should be here somewhere. Hagrid will collect the boy. Andromeda recognized that voice. Calm, measured, endlessly reasonable. Albus Dumbledore. She should stay. Should hand over the child to the headmaster of Hogwarts, the leader of the Order of the Phoenix, the most powerful wizard in Britain. It was the right thing to do. The sensible thing. But Andromeda had grown up with Bellatrix and Narcissa. She'd learned to read between lines, to hear what wasn't said, to understand that powerful men always had plans within plans. And she remembered something Dumbledore had said at an order meeting months ago, when she'd been helping with logistics because she couldn't fight while pregnant. He'd been discussing the prophecy, and someone had asked what would happen to the child if the parents died. "The boy has an aunt," Dumbledore had said. "Lily's sister. A Muggle. She would raise him away from our world, away from the fame and pressure. It would keep him humble. Grounded. Ready to make the necessary sacrifices when the time comes." The necessary sacrifices. Andromeda had seen what Lily's sister was like. She'd done her research after that meeting, because she was a black and blacks always did their research. Petunia Desley hated magic. Hated her sister for having it. Her husband was worse, a blustering, petty man who would crush anything different or special. And Dumbledore wanted to send this child there. To keep him humble. To make him ready for sacrifice. The protections will be strongest if he goes to blood relatives. The voices were closer now. Andromeda made her decision. She pulled the baby closer, wrapped her traveling cloak around him to muffle any sound, and disapparated with a crack that was lost in the noise of the settling ruins. 16 years later, Harry woke to someone bouncing on his bed like a hyperactive kangaroo. Get up, get up, get up, it's your birthday, you ancient decrepit 17-year-old. He grabbed Nymphodora's ankle and yanked. She yelped and tumbled off the bed, her hair shifting from pink to orange to violent purple as she fell. Ow! You absolute git! You jumped on me! Harry sat up, running a hand through his perpetually messy black hair. What did you expect? I expected gratitude. Joy. Perhaps a touching speech about how wonderful I am for waking you on this momentous occasion. Dora pulled herself off the floor, rubbing her elbow and glaring at him. Mum made cake. Chocolate. With those little sugar snitches you like. And you thank me by attempting murder. Attempted murder would involve a wand. Harry swung his legs over the side of the bed. That was barely attempted bruising. I'm wounded. Emotionally devastated. I may never recover. You'll live. Only because I'm too pretty to die. Dora's hair settled on turquoise as she grinned at him. Seriously though, happy birthday. 17. Legal adult. You can drink now. I could drink before. You just weren't supposed to know about it. I'm an Auror trainee. I know everything. She leaned against his doorframe, and for a moment her expression shifted from playful to something more serious. Big day, Harry. You ready? He knew what she meant. They'd been preparing for this for years. The blood wards Andromeda had constructed when he was a baby, tied to her own blood, her own protective love, a modified version of what Lily Potter had died creating, would expire at midnight tonight. For 16 years, those wards had kept him hidden. No tracking spells could find him. No magical detection could identify him. As far as the wizarding world knew, Harry Potter had vanished the night his parents died. Tonight, that protection ended. Ready as I'll ever be, Harry said. Dora nodded, and the seriousness faded back into her usual chaos. Good. Now get dressed, come downstairs, and pretend to be surprised about the cake. Mum spent hours on it, and if you ruin the moment I'll hex you into next week. She bounced away, nearly tripping over the hallway rug, her hair cycling through 3 more colors before she made it to the stairs. Harry watched her go, smiling despite himself. Then he turned to look out his window at the Welsh coastline stretching grey and wild beneath an overcast sky. 17 years old. Legally an adult in the wizarding world. And sometime in the next few days, everyone was going to learn that the boy who lived hadn't died or disappeared. He'd been raised in secret by a disowned black daughter, trained in magic both light and dark, and had absolutely no intention of being anyone's weapon. He pulled on trousers and a shirt, checked that his wand was in its holster, constant vigilance, Andromeda always said, even at home, and headed downstairs to pretend to be surprised about cake. The kitchen smelled like chocolate and strong tea, and Andromeda was standing at the counter with her back to him when Harry walked in. He stopped in the doorway, just for a moment, and let himself look. She was 45 years old, and she was still the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Dark hair pulled back in a simple twist, a few gray strands she refused to hide with magic. Strong features, sharp cheekbones, the aristocratic bearing that all the Black sisters shared. She was wearing simple robes in deep blue, her sleeves pushed up as she worked some final charm over the cake. He'd been 14 when he first realized his feelings for her weren't what they should be. When he'd caught himself staring at her across the dinner table, when his heart had started racing every time she touched his shoulder or praised his spellwork, when he'd begun having dreams that left him guilty and confused and burning. He'd tried to make it stop. For 3 years, he'd tried. Dated a girl in the nearby Muggle village for 6 months, just to prove to himself that he could feel normal things for normal people. It hadn't worked. Sarah had been pretty and kind and absolutely nothing compared to Andromeda. So he'd stopped fighting it. He'd accepted that he loved her, that he would always love her, and that it was completely impossible and he would never act on it. Except sometimes, he caught her looking at him the same way. Caught her hand lingering on his arm too long. Caught her breath hitching when he stood too close. He wasn't imagining it. He was sure of that now. But neither of them ever spoke about it. "You're staring," Andromeda said without turning around. "Just admiring the cake." She glanced over her shoulder, one eyebrow raised, a smile playing at her lips. "The cake is in front of me. You can't see it from there. I have excellent peripheral vision." She turned back to her work, and Harry finally moved into the kitchen properly, dropping into his usual chair at the battered wooden table. "Happy birthday, Harry." "Thanks, Mom." The word still felt strange on his tongue sometimes. She'd never asked him to call her that, had actually told him, when he was old enough to understand, that she wasn't his real mother and he never had to pretend she was. But he'd started using it when he was 6, and she'd cried, and he'd never stopped. She wasn't his mother. Not really. But she was the only parent he'd ever known, and he loved her in every complicated, impossible way that word could mean. "Dora said there would be snitches," he said. "Sugar ones. Dora talks too much." Andromeda turned, and there it was, the cake, 3 layers of chocolate with golden sugar snitches zooming around it in lazy circles. "But yes. It's perfect." "Of course it is. I made it." She set the cake on the table, then sat across from him, and for a moment they just looked at each other. 17. "So I'm told. I remember when you fit in the crook of my arm." Her voice was soft. "This tiny thing with 2 big eyes, crying in the ruins. And I looked at you and I thought, I can't let them have you. I can't let them turn you into a weapon. You've told me. I know. But today it feels." She shook her head. "Tonight the wards fall. I know. They'll come. Dumbledore. Maybe others. I know." Harry reached across the table and took her hand. Her fingers were cool against his, and he felt her pulse jump at the contact. "I'm ready. You made sure of that. I taught you everything I could. The magic, the politics, the history. But I couldn't teach you how to handle being the boy who lived. I couldn't prepare you for a world that spent 16 years building you into a legend. I don't care about legends. They'll care about you. The prophecy is either real or it isn't. If it's real, I'll deal with Voldemort when he comes back. If it's not, then Dumbledore's been manipulating everyone for nothing." Harry squeezed her hand. "Either way, I'm not running. I'm not hiding anymore. And I'm not leaving you." Andromeda's breath caught. "Harry. Where's the birthday girl?" Dora burst into the kitchen, breaking the moment, and Andromeda pulled her hand back like she'd been burned. "Oh, there's the cake. It's beautiful, Mum, really. Harry, stop looking like someone killed your owl, it's your birthday, be happy." Harry forced a smile. "I'm thrilled. Look. Thrilled. That's the most depressing thrilled face I've ever seen. Mum, tell him to be happier. Harry, be happier. I'm overwhelmed with joy. Better." Dora grabbed a knife and started cutting cake, because apparently waiting for candles or singing was too pedestrian for her. "All right, birthday plans. We eat cake, we drink tea, we maybe break into the fire whiskey later. You have training tomorrow," Andromeda said mildly. "I'll be fine. I'm young and resilient. Unlike Harry, who is now ancient, 17 is not ancient. It's practically dead. 1 foot in the grave. Should we start planning your funeral now or?" Harry threw a sugar snitch at her head. She caught it in her mouth, grinning. "Nice try, old man." I hate you. You love me. He did, actually. She was the most annoying person he'd ever met, and she was his sister in every way that mattered, and he would kill anyone who hurt her. Maybe, he admitted, and Dora's grin softened into something genuine. Yeah, she said. I know. The fire whiskey came out around 9, despite Andromeda's half-hearted protests. They sat in the living room of the cottage that had been Harry's home for 16 years, cozy, cluttered with books, wards humming gently in the walls. A fire crackled in the hearth even though it was July, because Andromeda liked the ambience and none of them cared about seasonal appropriateness. Dora was sprawled across an armchair, her hair slowly cycling through colors as the alcohol hit her system. She'd always been a lightweight. Do you remember, she said, words slightly slurred, when Harry was 8 and he accidentally set the shed on fire? I didn't accidentally anything. I was practicing the incendio you taught me. On our shed. You said find something unimportant to practice on. The shed was falling apart anyway. Andromeda laughed, soft and warm, and Harry felt it in his chest like a physical thing. She was sitting on the sofa next to him, not touching, but close. Always close, these days. Like they were both drawn to each other and neither could help it. In fairness, Andromeda said, the shed was unimportant. I'd been meaning to demolish it for years. See? I was helping. You were 8 and unsupervised. I was a terrible mother. The worst, Harry agreed. Teaching me dark magic before I could even ride a broomstick. You hated brooms. Still do. Useless things. Dora snorted. Only you would hate flying. The most fun thing in the world and you're just like, nope, I'll walk thanks. Apparition exists. And flu. And port keys. Why would I bounce around on a stick when I could just, he snapped his fingers. Because it's fun, you absolute gremlin. Your idea of fun involves tripping over your own feet and turning your hair colors that don't exist in nature. Electric pink is a perfectly natural color. In what nature? The nature of my soul. Harry threw a pillow at her. She let it hit her face, too drunk to dodge. I'm comfortable, she mumbled into the fabric. This is my home now. I live in this pillow. Andromeda shook her head, fond exasperation clear on her face. You have training at 6 in the morning. Training can wait. Pillow can't. Nymphadora, don't call me that. The response was automatic, muffled by fabric. Hate that name. I know. That's why I use it. Andromeda stood, gently prying the pillow away from her daughter's face. Bed. Now. Before you pass out on my good furniture. Your furniture is terrible and I love it. Bed. Dora groaned, but she let Andromeda pull her up, swaying on her feet. Fine. But only because you're the best mom ever and I love you and I'm going to regret this in the morning. You absolutely will. Harry, help me get her upstairs. Together, they maneuvered Dora up the narrow staircase and into her childhood bedroom, still decorated with weird sisters posters and Hufflepuff banners, because she'd never let Andromeda redecorate. They dumped her on the bed, where she immediately curled into a ball and started snoring. Lightweight, Harry said. She gets it from her father. Andromeda's voice was flat when she mentioned Ted, and Harry didn't push. That wound was still raw, even after 5 years. They stood in the doorway, watching Dora sleep, and the silence between them was heavy with things unsaid. 3 hours until midnight, Andromeda murmured. I know. Are you scared? Harry considered the question. No. I don't think so. Maybe I should be. You've never been afraid of anything. That's not true. I'm afraid of plenty of things. Name one. He turned to look at her, and the hallway was dark except for moonlight through the window, and she was beautiful in the shadows, and he couldn't stop himself from telling the truth. Losing you. Andromeda's breath caught. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she stepped closer to him, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something floral, subtle, familiar, and she put her hand on his chest, right over his heart. "You won't," she said quietly. "You can't promise that." "I can promise I'll fight like hell to make sure of it." Her hand pressed harder against his chest, and he wondered if she could feel how fast his heart was beating. 16 years, Harry. I've spent 16 years protecting you. I'm not going to stop now. I can protect myself. I know. You're magnificent. The word came out raw, honest, and she seemed to realize what she'd said because she pulled back, breaking contact. I mean, you're skilled. I trained you well. You did. So you don't need me to, I'll always need you. He caught her hand before she could retreat further. Not for protection. Just, you. I'll always need you. The air between them was charged. Electric. He could close the distance so easily. 2 steps and he could be kissing her, could be doing all the things he'd dreamed about for 3 years, could finally stop pretending that what he felt for her was anything like what a son should feel for a mother. He didn't move. Neither did she. Harry. Her voice was barely a whisper. We can't. I know. It's not, I don't, she closed her eyes. This isn't what I wanted. For you. For us. I didn't mean to, I know. He let go of her hand. It's okay. I know. She opened her eyes, and there were tears in them, and he hated himself for putting them there. 1 hour and 47 minutes, she said, pulling herself together with visible effort. Until midnight. We should prepare. In case they come tonight. Okay. I'll put up secondary wards. You should, check my supplies. I know the drill. She nodded, not quite meeting his eyes, and then she was gone, down the stairs, out into the garden, throwing herself into work because that was how Andromeda dealt with feelings she couldn't control. Harry leaned against the hallway wall and let out a long breath. 3 years. 3 years of wanting her, and she felt the same way, and it was still impossible. But at least he knew now. At least it wasn't all in his head. That was something. The ward stone in the garden was a simple granite pillar, about 3 feet tall, covered in runes that Andromeda had carved herself 16 years ago. Harry stood beside her as midnight approached, both of them watching it pulse with fading light. It'll shatter when the magic expires, Andromeda said. The wards were tied to your minority. The moment you become a legal adult, they recognize that I don't need protection anymore. That's not true. You'll always need protection. The wizarding world is full of people who want to use you. But I can fight back now. Legally. Yes. She glanced at him. The trace is gone too. You can use magic anywhere without ministry detection. I know. You explained this when I was 12. I'm nervous. I talk when I'm nervous. You could tell me about the properties of dragonfire again. That was a fun lecture. She almost smiled. I wasn't that boring. You were incredibly boring. I fell asleep twice. You did not. I did. You just didn't notice because I'd perfected the eyes open sleeping technique. The what? Dora taught me. She uses it during her more tedious aura lectures. Andromeda did smile then, small but real. Of course she did. The ward stone pulsed again, brighter this time, and then, it cracked. The sound was sharp, final, and Harry felt the protective magic that had surrounded him his entire life simply disappear. Like a blanket being pulled away. Like a held breath finally released. The stone shattered, fragments tumbling across the grass, and Harry Potter became visible to the wizarding world for the first time in 16 years. It's done, Andromeda said quietly. They'll know now. Anyone with tracking spells keyed to you, Dumbledore certainly has them, they'll know exactly where you are. How long until they show up? Depends on how paranoid they've been. If Dumbledore had real-time monitoring active, minutes. If he has to investigate, a crack of apparition echoed from beyond the garden fence. Minutes it is, Harry said. He stepped forward, putting himself between Andromeda and the fence, his wand sliding into his hand from its holster. The motion was smooth, practiced, automatic. He'd been training since he was old enough to hold a wand. Another crack. And another. Multiple people were arriving. Stay behind me, Harry said. I'm not a damsel, I know. But they don't know what I can do. Better to keep you as a surprise. Andromeda hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But if they try anything, they won't get the chance. The garden gate swung open, and Albus Dumbledore walked through, flanked by Minerva McGonagall, Alastor Moody, and 4 other witches and wizards Harry didn't recognize, Aurors, probably, from their uniform robes. Dumbledore looked exactly like his photographs. Long silver beard, half-moon spectacles, twinkling blue eyes that held far more calculation than grandfatherly warmth. He wore elaborate purple robes and carried a wand that Harry recognized from his studies, the Elder Wand, one of the Deathly Hallows, though most people thought that was just a legend. My dear boy, Dumbledore said, his voice rich with warmth. Harry. Thank Merlin we found you at last. Harry didn't lower his wand. Headmaster Dumbledore. You'll forgive me if I don't share your relief. The twinkle in Dumbledore's eyes flickered. I understand this must be confusing for you. You've been hidden for so long, kept from your rightful place in our world. I know exactly what my rightful place was supposed to be. Harry's voice was flat, hard. Number 4, Privet Drive. With Petunia Dursley and her charming husband Vernon. In a cupboard under the stairs, I imagine, since I doubt they'd have given me a real bedroom. McGonagall's sharp intake of breath was audible. Dumbledore's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. I see you've been informed, Dumbledore said carefully. By whoever took you from Godric's Hollow. By the woman who saved me from a childhood of abuse and neglect, you mean. Harry stepped aside slightly, revealing Andromeda. I believe you know each other. Dumbledore's eyes widened. It was the first genuine surprise Harry had seen from him. Andromeda Black. Andromeda Tonks, actually. I married a Muggleborn. It was quite the scandal. Her voice was cool, controlled, every inch the pure-blood aristocrat she'd been raised to be. Good evening, Albus. It's been some time. 16 years, Dumbledore said. 16 years you've hidden the boy who lived from you? Yes. From people who would have raised him in misery to make him a more compliant sacrifice? Absolutely. Andromeda moved to stand beside Harry, shoulder to shoulder. I was at that order meeting, Dumbledore. I heard what you planned. The necessary sacrifices, you said. As if he was a chess piece instead of a child. The prophecy can go to hell. If there's a Dark Lord to be defeated, Harry will defeat him, not because you manipulated him into it, but because he chooses to. Because I raised him to be strong enough to make his own choices. Moody stepped forward, his magical eye spinning wildly in its socket. Now listen here, Black, Tonks. Whatever. You kidnapped the most important child in Wizarding Britain, I adopted him. You took him from a crime scene, I saved him from a destroyed building while the Order was busy patting themselves on the back over Voldemort's disappearance. Andromeda's voice cracked like a whip. You lot took hours to respond. Hours. I had time to get there, assess the situation, and make a decision before your people even arrived. Where was your protection then, Alastor? Where was your famous constant vigilance? Moody's scarred face twisted, but he didn't have an answer. Let's all calm down, McGonagall said, stepping between the groups. This isn't productive. The fact is, Harry is alive and well, and that's what matters. We can discuss the circumstances of his upbringing later, we can discuss it never, Harry interrupted. My upbringing is not a subject for debate. Andromeda raised me. She's my mother in every way that matters. And I'm not going anywhere with any of you. Dumbledore raised his hands in a placating gesture. Of course, Harry. You're 17 now, a legal adult. No one can force you to do anything. Good. But surely you have questions. About your parents, about the prophecy, about the life you were meant to live. I know about my parents. Andromeda told me everything, their school years, their wedding, their work with the Order. She showed me photographs, played me recordings, made sure I knew who James and Lily Potter were. Harry kept his wand steady. I know about the prophecy too. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. Shall I continue? There's a whole thing about powers the Dark Lord knows not and neither can live while the other survives. Dumbledore's mask slipped for just a moment, genuine shock flashing across his features before the grandfather act reasserted itself. You know the full prophecy? I know everything. Andromeda made sure of it. No secrets, no manipulation, just the truth. Try again. Silence stretched between them. The four Aurors shifted uncomfortably. McGonagall was staring at Harry with an expression somewhere between impressed and alarmed. Moody's magical eye had stopped spinning, fixed squarely on Harry's wand hand. Well, Dumbledore said finally. This is, not what I expected. No, I imagine not. You expected a scared boy, ignorant of his past, grateful to be rescued from 16 years of isolation. Harry smiled thinly. Sorry to disappoint. You're not a disappointment, Harry. You're a surprise. Dumbledore's voice shifted, becoming more serious, more honest. A pleasant one, in many ways. You're clearly intelligent, well-trained, and confident. Those are good qualities. But Voldemort is not gone. Dumbledore held up a hand to forestall interruption. I know, officially, he was destroyed when he attacked you. But I have reason to believe he survived in some form. His soul was, fragmented. Anchored to this world. And when he returns, and he will return, you are the only one who can stop him. The prophecy. Yes. I didn't create it, Harry. I simply learned of it. And everything I've done, everything, has been to prepare you for that eventual confrontation. By sending me to the Dursleys. The Blood Wards, Andromeda replicated them. Used her own blood, her own love. It worked perfectly well without requiring me to live with people who would have hated me. Another flash of surprise. She, replicated Lily's sacrifice. She's a black. Dark magic isn't exactly unfamiliar territory. Harry glanced at Andromeda, who inclined her head slightly. Your great plan wasn't the only option, Dumbledore. It wasn't even the best option. It was just the one that kept me under your control. Dumbledore was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. You don't trust me. No. You may have good reason. I've made mistakes over the years, many of them in pursuit of what I believed was the greater good. I can see how my plans for you might appear manipulative. They were manipulative. Let's not pretend otherwise. Perhaps. But the threat remains, Harry. Voldemort remains. And whether you trust me or not, you will need allies when he returns. Harry lowered his wand, not putting it away, just letting it hang at his side. I'll find my own allies. People who actually care about me, not about what I can do for them. And if I could provide resources, training, information. You can provide information. Right now. Full disclosure about everything you know regarding Voldemort's survival, what he did to his soul, where he might be, what his plans are. Hold nothing back. That's a significant request. Those are my terms. You want my cooperation. You want me to eventually deal with Voldemort? Fine. But I do it my way, with full knowledge, or I don't do it at all. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. Harry could practically see the calculations happening behind those twinkling eyes, weighing the risks, the benefits, the potential for manipulation. Very well, Dumbledore said finally. Not tonight, it's late, and there's much to discuss, but I will arrange a meeting. You, me, and whoever you wish to have present. Full disclosure, as you requested. Andromeda will be there. Of course. And I choose the location. Dumbledore hesitated, then nodded. Acceptable. Then we're done here. Harry stepped back, putting more distance between them. I'll send an owl with the meeting details. Now kindly get off our property. McGonagall looked like she wanted to say something, but a look from Dumbledore silenced her. Moody was still watching Harry with his magical eye, evaluating, calculating. One more thing, Harry said, just as Dumbledore turned to leave. The Daily Prophet is going to have a field day with this. Boy who lived found after 16 years, I can see the headline now. Whatever story they print, whatever narrative you try to spin, remember, I know the truth. And I'm not afraid to share it. Dumbledore's expression was unreadable. I'll keep that in mind. He turned and walked back through the garden gate, his entourage following. One by one, they disapparated into the night, until the garden was empty except for Harry and Andromeda standing among the fragments of the shattered ward stone. Well, Andromeda said after a moment. That went better than expected. Did it? No one tried to stun you. I count that as a win. Harry laughed despite himself, the tension draining out of his shoulders. Low bar. With Moody involved? Extremely low. She touched his arm, and he felt the contact like electricity. You were magnificent, Harry. Everything I hoped you'd be. I had a good teacher. Flatterer. Truth-teller. He turned to face her, and they were standing close again, closer than they should be. What happens now? Now. We go inside, we get some sleep, and tomorrow we start dealing with the fallout. The Prophet will publish something by morning, Dumbledore will make sure of it. By this time tomorrow, everyone in Britain will know Harry Potter is back. And they'll come looking. Yes. Let them. Harry reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face before he could stop himself. She froze at the contact, her breath catching. Whatever comes, we face it together. That's all that matters. Andromeda closed her eyes. Harry. I know. I know we can't. I know all the reasons why. His voice was quiet, honest. But I need you to know, whatever happens, whatever the world thinks of us, you're the most important person in my life. That's not going to change. She opened her eyes, and there were tears in them again, but she was smiling. You're going to be the death of me, Harry Potter. Not if I can help it. They stood there for a long moment, neither moving, neither speaking. Then Andromeda stepped back, and the moment passed. Come inside, she said. It's cold, and we both need rest. Tomorrow is going to be complicated. Harry followed her into the cottage, and if his hand brushed against hers as they walked, neither of them mentioned it. The Daily Prophet headline was worse than expected. Boy who lived found, raised in secret by disgraced black family member. Exclusive report by Rita Skeeter. Harry read the article over breakfast while Dora groaned into her coffee, suffering the consequences of last night's fire whiskey. Andromeda stood at the counter, her expression carefully blank as she read her own copy. Stolen from the ruins of his parents' murder, Harry read aloud, by Andromeda Tonks, née Black, the blood traitor sister of notorious Death Eater Bellatrix Lestrange. Harry Potter has spent 16 years hidden from the wizarding world that mourned him. He flipped the page. There's a photograph of you from some ministry event in 1978. very dramatic. I was young. You were beautiful. I was young and beautiful. Andromeda's voice was flat. Skeeter is going to have a field day with this. I can already see the follow-up articles. What dark magic did she teach him? Is the boy who lived actually a dark wizard? Exclusive, Harry Potter's secret Death Eater training. Let them write what they want. Harry set down the paper. Anyone who matters will learn the truth eventually. And the people who don't matter? They'll believe every word. Public opinion is a weapon, Harry. Dumbledore knows how to use it. So does Skeeter, in her own way. Dora raised her head from her coffee, looking vaguely green. Can we not talk about weapons before I've finished dying? Some of us are suffering here. You did this to yourself, Andromeda said mildly. I was celebrating. It was Harry's birthday. I was being a supportive sister. You were being an idiot. Supportive. Idiot. Dora waved a hand. Same thing. An owl swooped through the open window, dropping a letter on the table before perching on the back of Harry's chair. He recognized the Hogwarts seal on the envelope. That was fast, Andromeda said. Harry broke the seal and scanned the contents. Meeting request. Dumbledore proposes Saturday, 3 days from now. He suggests the Hog's Head in Hogsmeade, neutral territory. Neutral for him, maybe. He owns half that village. I know. I'll counter-propose somewhere else. Harry stroked the owl's feathers thoughtfully. Gringotts. Private meeting room. The goblins don't care about wizarding politics, and Dumbledore won't try anything under their roof. Smart. Andromeda sat down across from him, stealing a piece of toast from his plate. What are you hoping to learn? Everything he knows about Voldemort's soul magic. Horcruxes, specifically. Andromeda's expression flickered. You know about those? You mentioned them once. When I was 15, during that lesson on the darkest forms of immortality. You said only the truly insane would attempt it. Harry met her eyes. Voldemort was insane. If he survived his body's destruction, horcruxes are the most likely explanation. They're also nearly impossible to destroy. Each one requires basilisk venom, fiend fire, the killing curse under specific circumstances. Harry ticked off the options on his fingers. I've done my research. Of course you have. Andromeda shook her head, but she was smiling. Sometimes I forget how thorough you are. You raised me. Who else would I learn it from? Their eyes met, and something passed between them, that familiar electricity, that awareness that was always there now, humming just beneath the surface. Dora groaned again, loudly and dramatically. If you two are going to make eyes at each other, can you at least wait until I'm not hungover? I don't have the energy to be uncomfortable right now. Harry and Andromeda both looked at her sharply. What? Dora blinked at them with bloodshot eyes. You think I don't notice? I've had eyes for years. I see things. Dora, Andromeda started. Nope. Not doing this now. Head hurts too much. Dora pushed herself up from the table, swaying slightly. I'm going back to bed. Wake me if the world ends or if there's more cake. Actually, only wake me for cake. The world ending can wait. She stumbled out of the kitchen, and Harry and Andromeda sat in suddenly awkward silence. She knows, Andromeda said quietly. Apparently. How long, I don't know. She never said anything. Andromeda closed her eyes. This is a disaster. Is it? Harry's voice was careful. She didn't seem upset. More, resigned. She shouldn't have to be resigned to whatever this is. You're her brother. I'm her mother. It's not, Andromeda stopped, shaking her head. It doesn't matter. We can't. That's the point. We can't. I know. Then stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like you're thinking about. She stopped herself again, pressing a hand to her forehead. I can't do this right now. I need to go. She stood abruptly, leaving her half-eaten toast on the table, and fled the kitchen. A moment later, Harry heard the back door open and close. He sat alone, the owl still perched on his chair, and tried to figure out how everything had gotten so complicated so fast. The owl hooted softly, apparently bored with waiting. Right, Harry muttered. Response letter. Gringotts. Focus. He pulled out parchment and quill and started writing, pushing everything else to the back of his mind. There would be time to deal with his feelings later. Right now, he had a war to prepare for. Saturday arrived with gray skies and a persistent drizzle that seemed to match Harry's mood. The past 3 days had been chaotic. More owls than Harry could count, interview requests, meeting demands, threats both subtle and overt. The Minister of Magic himself had written, requesting an audience. Harry had declined. Dumbledore had agreed to Gringotts, which surprised Harry. Either the old man was more desperate than he let on, or he genuinely wanted to make peace. Harry wasn't naive enough to believe the latter. They fled to the leaky cauldron and walked through Diagon Alley, and Harry got his first real taste of fame. People stared. Pointed. Whispered. A few bold ones actually approached, trying to shake his hand, trying to ask questions. Harry handled them with cool politeness, deflecting without engaging, keeping his wand hand visible and ready. Andromeda walked beside him, her presence a comfort and a shield. Dora had stayed home, she had Auror training, and besides, Harry didn't want to risk her career more than he already had. The goblins at Gringotts were professionally indifferent to the commotion outside. They escorted Harry and Andromeda to a private meeting room, neutral territory, as requested, and left them to wait. Dumbledore arrived precisely on time, alone this time. He looked older in daylight, more tired, as if the past few days had weighed on him. Harry. Mrs. Tonks. He settled into a chair across from them. Thank you for arranging this. Let's skip the pleasantries, Harry said. You promised full disclosure. Start with the horcruxes. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. You know that term? I know a lot of terms. I also know that Voldemort made at least one, probably more. I want to know how many and where they are. Straight to business, then. Dumbledore folded his hands. Very well. To my knowledge, Voldemort created 6 horcruxes, though there may be more. 6. Harry's voice was flat. He split his soul into 7 pieces. 6 fragments and objects, 1 remaining in his original body, or what was left of it after his physical form was destroyed. Dumbledore pulled a roll of parchment from his robes. I've spent 15 years researching this. These are my notes. He slid the parchment across the table. Harry unrolled it, scanning the contents. Detailed research. Speculation on specific objects. Possible locations. A diary, Harry read. A ring. A locket. A cup. Something belonging to Rowena Ravenclaw. And his snake. Those are my best guesses. I've already destroyed 2, the diary and the ring. Dumbledore held up his right hand, and Harry noticed for the first time that it was blackened, withered. The ring was difficult. Cursed. Extremely. I made an error in handling it. The damage is contained but not reversible. Harry studied the old man's hand, then his face. For the first time, he felt something other than suspicion, a grudging respect for someone who'd risked his life fighting the same enemy. The others? Unknown locations, for the most part. The locket may be in the possession of the Black family. Regulus Black stole the original and replaced it with a fake before his death. I've never been able to recover it. Andromeda leaned forward. The Black family house. Grimmauld Place. You know it? It was my childhood home. I haven't set foot there in 25 years, but yes, I know it. Her expression was complicated. If the locket is there, I can find it. That would be most helpful. Dumbledore's eyes flickered between them. There's also the matter of the cup. It was given to Bellatrix Lestrange for safekeeping. Her vault, Harry said immediately. She'd keep something that important in Gringotts. Almost certainly. But breaking into a high-security vault, leave that to me. Harry rolled up the parchment. What else? Dumbledore hesitated. There's one more horcrux. One I didn't include in the notes. Why not? Because destroying it is complicated. The old man's eyes met Harry's, and there was something like pain in them. When Voldemort's killing curse rebounded, a fragment of his soul was blasted free of his body. It attached to the only living thing in the room. The silence was absolute. Harry felt Andromeda's hand grip his arm, her fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You're saying, Harry said slowly, that I'm a horcrux. You contain a fragment of Voldemort's soul. The scar on your forehead is the anchor point. As long as it exists, Voldemort cannot truly die. And to destroy it? I don't know. Dumbledore's voice was heavy. There may be a way to remove the fragment without killing you. I've been researching possibilities for years. But I won't lie to you, Harry, when I first learned the truth, I believed. I believed you might have to sacrifice yourself. That's why you wanted me at the Dursleys. The pieces were falling into place now. Not just to keep me humble. You wanted me ready to die. I wanted you to understand that some things are more important than individual survival. The greater good. Harry slammed his hand on the table. The goblin maid would crack under the impact. Don't. His voice was low, dangerous. Don't you dare talk to me about the greater good. You were going to raise me like a pig for slaughter, make me miserable enough that death would seem like a release, and you're trying to justify it? I was trying to save the world. By destroying one child's life. Harry stood, his magic crackling in the air around him. Do you have any idea what would have happened if Andromeda hadn't found me first? Do you know what Petunia Dursley is capable of? I would have grown up hated, abused, broken, and you think that's acceptable because it would have made me easier to kill? Harry, Andromeda tried to intercede, but he wasn't done. You don't get to decide who lives and dies. You don't get to sacrifice children for your greater good. And you definitely don't get to sit there and pretend you're the hero of this story. Harry leaned across the table, his face inches from Dumbledore's. I'm going to destroy the horcruxes. All of them. And then I'm going to kill Voldemort, not because you manipulated me into it, but because he murdered my parents and he's a threat to everyone I love. And when it's done, you and I are going to have a very different conversation about your methods. Dumbledore didn't flinch. Didn't look away. And if destroying the horcruxes requires your death, then I'll find another way. That's what people do when they're not willing to sacrifice innocence for their grand plans. Harry straightened. We're done here. I have what I need. He turned and walked out, not waiting to see if Andromeda followed. She caught up with him in the Gringotts lobby, her hand closing around his elbow. Harry, wait. He stopped, but he didn't turn. His shoulders were tense, his magic still sparking around him in visible flickers of light. I'm fine. You're not fine. You just learned you have a piece of Voldemort's soul inside you. No one would be fine after that. I said I'm fine. And I said you're not. She moved around to face him, cupping his face in her hands. Look at me. He looked. Her eyes were dark and worried and full of something he didn't dare name. Whatever that thing is inside you, she said quietly, it's not you. You are not Voldemort. You're Harry, my Harry, and we're going to figure this out together. Do you understand? Andromeda, do you understand? Yes. I understand. Good. She didn't let go of his face. Now we're going to walk out of here, go home, and come up with a plan. A real plan, not Dumbledore's sacrifice the boy plan. Something that ends with you alive and Voldemort dead. Okay. Okay. She finally released him, and he felt the loss of her touch like a physical ache. Let's go home, she said. And they did. The cottage was quiet when they returned. Dora was still at training, the fire had burned low, and the afternoon light was fading to grey. Harry stood at the living room window, staring out at the sea, while Andromeda put the kettle on. Neither of them had spoken since leaving Gringotts. I always knew, Harry said finally. Some part of me always knew there was something wrong. The connection I could feel to him, the dreams, the flashes of his emotions when he was strong enough. I told myself it was just the cursed scar. But it wasn't, was it? It was him. A piece of him, living inside me. Andromeda came to stand beside him, close but not touching. Does it change anything? Who you are? I don't know. He turned to look at her. Does it change how you see me? No. The word was immediate, fierce. You could have 10 pieces of Voldemort's soul inside you and you'd still be Harry. You'd still be the boy who made me laugh when you were learning to walk. The child who insisted on calling me Mum even when I told you I wasn't your mother. The young man who, she stopped, looking away. Who what? Who makes me feel things I shouldn't feel. Her voice was barely a whisper. Who makes me want things I can't have. Harry's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it. Andromeda, I shouldn't be saying this. Not now, not ever. But after today, after learning what Dumbledore planned, what you might have to face, I can't pretend anymore. She turned back to him, and there were tears on her cheeks. I love you, Harry. Not as a mother loves a son. As a woman loves a man. And I've been fighting it for years because it's wrong, because you deserve someone your own age, because the world would never understand. He kissed her. He didn't think about it, didn't give himself time to hesitate. He just closed the distance between them and pressed his lips to hers, and she made a sound that might have been a sob or a moan and she kissed him back. It wasn't gentle. It was years of wanting, years of denying, all crashing together in a single moment. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head for a better angle. She tasted like tea and tears and everything he'd ever wanted. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed together, both of them shaking. We can't, Andromeda whispered. I know. The world would, I don't care about the world. I'm old enough to be your mother, you're not my mother. You've never been my mother, not really. You've been my teacher, my protector, my friend, and for the last 3 years you've been the woman I'm in love with. Harry pulled back just enough to look at her. Tell me you don't feel the same. Tell me this is one-sided and I'll back off, I'll bury these feelings so deep they'll never see daylight again. But don't tell me we can't just because other people wouldn't approve. Andromeda closed her eyes. It's not that simple. Yes it is. Do you love me? A long pause. Yes. Do you want to be with me? Harry, answer the question. She opened her eyes, and they were blazing with something fierce and desperate and terrified. Yes. God help me, yes. Then nothing else matters. He took her hands. We figure out the Horcrux problem. We deal with Voldemort. And then we live our lives, together, the way we want to, regardless of what anyone else thinks. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. It's just not easy. He brought her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles. But I've never wanted easy. I just want you. Andromeda laughed, wet and shaky. You're impossible. You raised me. Whose fault is that? Mine, apparently. She shook her head, but she was smiling now. What did I do to deserve you? Saved my life. Gave me a home. Taught me everything I know. Harry smiled back. I'd say we're even. They stood there in the fading light, hands intertwined, and for the first time since midnight, Harry felt something like peace. It wouldn't last, he knew that. The world was about to discover that the boy who lived had been found, and everything was going to change. But right now, in this moment, he had her. And that was enough. You're what? Dora's voice could probably be heard in London. She'd come home from training to find Harry and Andromeda sitting together on the sofa, not doing anything inappropriate, just sitting close, their hands brushing occasionally, and she'd immediately demanded an explanation. Harry had told her the truth. All of it. The horcruxes, the soul fragment in his scar, Dumbledore's plans for him, and, most explosively, the kiss. You kissed. Dora's hair had gone through approximately 17 colors in the past 30 seconds. You actually, Mom. You kissed Harry. You kissed my brother. He's not actually your brother, Andromeda started. He's absolutely my brother. I taught him to fly a broomstick. I gave him the talk when he was 13 and Mum was too embarrassed. You gave me a pamphlet, Harry interjected. That was very progressive of me. And now you're kissing Mum and I don't know how to feel about this. Harry and Andromeda exchanged glances. This was going about as well as expected. Dora, Andromeda said carefully. I know this is strange. Believe me, I've spent years telling myself all the reasons why it shouldn't happen, yeah, like the fact that you literally raised him. Or that you're 45 and he just turned 17. Or that this is literally the most scandalous thing that has ever happened in our family, and our family includes Bellatrix. Bellatrix tortured people, Harry pointed out. Yeah, well, at least she didn't date them first. Dora threw herself into an armchair, her hair settling on a panicked orange. Okay. Okay. I need a minute. I need several minutes. I need possibly an entire year. Take whatever time you need, Andromeda said quietly. We're not asking you to be okay with this. We're just telling you the truth. Because you deserve that. Dora pressed her hands to her face. The truth. Right. Okay. A muffled sound that might have been a scream. The truth is my brother is shagging my mum. We haven't, Harry started. I don't want details. Oh God, I really don't want details. Dora dropped her hands, looking vaguely traumatized. Okay. New rule. No details. Ever. I will literally die if you give me details. No details, Andromeda agreed. Dora, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I know. Dora slumped in her chair. That's the thing, I know. I've watched you two for years, Mom. I've seen how you look at each other. I told myself I was imagining things, because the alternative was, this. She gestured vaguely at them. But I wasn't imagining it, was I? No. And you're both happy? This actually makes you happy? Harry looked at Andromeda. She looked at him. The answer was written all over both their faces. Yes, Andromeda said softly. Dora groaned. Then I guess I have to be okay with it. Because watching you mope around for 5 years after Dad left was terrible, Mom, and Harry's the only person who's made you smile like that since. She pointed at Harry. But if you hurt her, I will hex you into next century. Fair. And I'm not calling you Dad. Absolutely not. And this conversation never happened. We never had this conversation. If anyone asks, I know nothing. Deal, Harry said. Dora stared at them both for another long moment. Then, incredibly, she started to laugh. Oh, Merlin. Oh, this is insane. The Daily Prophet is going to lose their minds when they find out. She laughed harder. Skeeter's going to have an aneurysm. Can you imagine? Boy who lived in secret love affair with adopted mother. They'll need 17 follow-up articles. Harry grinned despite himself. You seem to be taking this better than expected. I'm hysterical. This is hysteria. Dora wiped tears of laughter from her eyes. Okay. Okay. I'm fine. This is fine. Everything is extremely weird but fine. She stood up abruptly. I need a drink. A very large drink. And then I'm going to bed and pretending this day never happened. She walked to the kitchen, paused at the doorway, and looked back. For what it's worth, she said, her voice suddenly serious, you do make each other happy. I can see it. And I want you both to be happy. A small smile. Even if your way of being happy is extremely disturbing and I'm probably going to need therapy. She disappeared into the kitchen. A moment later, they heard the clink of a bottle and a muttered string of increasingly creative profanity. Harry turned to Andromeda. That went well. She took it better than I expected. She loves you. She loves us both. She'll adapt. I hope so. Andromeda leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. This is really happening, isn't it? After all these years of pretending. No more pretending. Harry wrapped an arm around her. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Together, she agreed. And in the kitchen, Dora downed an entire glass of fire whiskey in one go and wondered how her life had gotten so completely, utterly insane. Chapter 2, Hunted. The manor was cold despite the roaring fires in every hearth. Voldemort sat at the head of a long table, his serpentine features illuminated by flickering candlelight, watching his Death Eaters squirm. They'd grown complacent during his absence, soft, lazy, more concerned with ministry positions and social standing than the cause they'd sworn to serve. That would change. 16 years, he said, and his voice was quiet, almost gentle. The Death Eaters flinched anyway. 16 years the boy has been hidden from us. From me. And none of you thought to look. Lucius Malfoy shifted in his seat. My lord, the trail was cold. Dumbledore himself couldn't find. Dumbledore is a fool who relies on others to do his work. Voldemort's red eyes fixed on Lucius, and the man went pale. You had resources. Contacts. Gold. And you used them to buy your way out of Azkaban instead of searching for the one person who could threaten my return. My lord, I never stopped believing. Voldemort laughed, and it was a terrible sound. You believed I was dead, Lucius. You all did. You mourned, you moved on, you built your comfortable little lives. Only my most faithful, his gaze swept to Bellatrix, who preened at the attention, continued to serve. Bellatrix leaned forward, her wild hair framing a face that was beautiful and mad in equal measure. I never doubted, my lord. I knew you would return. I waited for you. Yes, Bella. You waited. Voldemort's lipless mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. And now you will be rewarded. I have a task for you. Anything, my lord. The boy was raised by your sister. The blood traitor. Bellatrix's expression twisted with disgust. Andromeda. Indeed. She's kept him hidden, trained him in magic both light and dark. Reports suggest he's formidable. Voldemort's eyes glittered with something that might have been interest. I want you to test him. See what kind of wizard my enemy has become. You want me to kill him? Not yet. I want information. Observe him. Challenge him. But do not kill him, not until I decide whether he might be useful. Bellatrix's brow furrowed. Useful, my lord. The boy was meant to be my destruction, according to prophecy. But prophecies can be reinterpreted. Voldemort steepled his long fingers. A wizard raised by a black, trained in our family magic, kept separate from Dumbledore's influence, he might be turned. Corrupted. Made to serve rather than oppose. And if he can't be turned, then we kill him. But first, I want to know what we're dealing with. Voldemort waved a dismissive hand. Take a team. Make contact. Report back to me. Bellatrix rose, her smile sharp and eager. It will be my pleasure, my lord. She swept from the room, and Voldemort turned his attention to other matters, specifically, the hunt for the Elder Wand. He'd learned much in his years of exile. The Deathly Hallows were real. The Elder Wand existed, and Dumbledore possessed it. With that wand, nothing could stand against him. No prophecy would matter. No boy who lived could threaten his immortality. He just had to take it. Severus, he said, and a figure in the corner straightened. Tell me more about Hogwarts' defenses. The Ministry of Magic's atrium was chaos. Harry walked through it with Andromeda at his side and Dora trailing behind in her Auror trainee robes, and every head turned to watch them pass. Whispers followed like a wave. Is that him? Potter? The boy who lived? Who's the woman with him? Harry ignored them all, his expression carefully neutral, his posture relaxed but ready. Andromeda had drilled him on this: never show weakness, never show fear, but never provoke unnecessarily. The ministry was a battlefield of politics and appearances, and today they were walking into enemy territory. They'd been summoned. Not requested, summoned. The new Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, had demanded Harry's presence for questioning regarding his whereabouts for the past 16 years. The letter had been barely polite, dripping with implied threats. Harry had considered ignoring it. Andromeda had advised otherwise. Better to face them now, on your terms, than let them build a narrative without you, she'd said. Besides, I want to see Fudge's face when he realizes you're not the malleable child he was hoping for. So here they were, walking through the ministry like they owned it, drawing stares and whispers and the occasional camera flash. The elevator ride to level 1 was cramped and awkward. A wizard from the Department of Magical Transportation kept sneaking glances at Harry's scar. A witch with a clipboard stared openly at Andromeda, probably trying to place her face from old photographs. Dora, bless her, filled the silence with cheerful obliviousness. Did you know they changed the coffee in the Auror break room? It's terrible now. Tastes like someone brewed it with pond water. That's unfortunate, Harry said. I'm filing a formal complaint. This is a human rights violation. The elevator doors opened, and they stepped out into the minister's reception area. A severe-looking witch behind a desk regarded them with cold professionalism. Mr. Potter. Mrs. Tonks. The minister will see you now. Miss Tonks as well, Andromeda said coolly. She's here in her capacity as Auror liaison. The receptionist's eyes flicked to Dora, assessing. Very well. This way. The minister's office was exactly what Harry expected, ostentatious, cluttered with awards and photographs, designed to impress rather than function. Cornelius Fudge sat behind an enormous desk, flanked by two officials Harry didn't recognize and, surprisingly, Dolores Umbridge. Harry had read about Umbridge in the ministry files Andromeda had acquired over the years. Senior Undersecretary. Author of multiple anti-werewolf and anti-muggleborn legislation. Generally considered to be a vicious, petty bureaucrat with delusions of importance. She was wearing pink. Lots of pink. And smiling. Harry immediately disliked her. Mr. Potter. Fudge rose, extending his hand with practiced warmth. Such a pleasure to finally meet you. We've been worried sick, of course, the entire wizarding world has mourned your disappearance. I wasn't dead, Harry said, not taking the offered hand. Just hidden. There's a difference. Fudge's smile flickered. Yes, well. Hidden. That's precisely what we'd like to discuss. He gestured to chairs arranged before his desk. Please, sit. We have many questions. Harry sat. Andromeda sat beside him. Dora positioned herself slightly behind, where she could watch the room. I'll answer what I can, Harry said. Though I should point out that I'm a legal adult and there's nothing illegal about being raised in seclusion. You have no grounds to compel anything. Umbridge's smile widened. Such confidence for one so young. I'm sure you mean no disrespect to the minister, I mean whatever I say. If I intended disrespect, you'd know it. A flash of something ugly crossed Umbridge's face before the smile reasserted itself. Of course, of course. We simply want to understand the circumstances of your unconventional upbringing. Mrs. Tonks found me in the ruins of my parents' house. She raised me. End of story. Surely there's more to it than that, Fudge pressed. Why did she take you? Why keep you hidden from the wizarding world? Some might say, he glanced at Umbridge, that it seems almost suspicious. A member of the Black family, hiding the boy who lived away from proper oversight. Harry felt Andromeda tense beside him, but he spoke before she could. Proper oversight? You mean like sending me to live with muggles who would have hated me? Raised me in a cupboard? Beat me for showing any sign of magic? Fudge blinked. I'm not sure what you, Petunia Dursley. My mother's sister. That's where Dumbledore planned to send me. Did you know that, Minister? Did you know the great Albus Dumbledore intended to leave the boy who lived with magic-hating muggles who would have made my childhood a living hell? The room went very quiet. That is. Fudge looked genuinely thrown. Dumbledore's plans were for your protection, Dumbledore's plans were for his convenience. Harry's voice was flat, hard. He wanted me weak, ignorant, and grateful. A weapon he could point at Voldemort when the time came. You know who is dead? Fudge spluttered. He died when, he's not dead. Harry let that hang in the air. You know it. Dumbledore knows it. Everyone with half a brain knows it. He survived, he's been rebuilding, and he's going to come back. The only question is whether you're going to keep pretending otherwise until he's knocking on the ministry's door, or whether you're going to actually prepare. Fudge had gone red. Now see here, I'm not finished. Harry stood, and something in his presence made everyone in the room flinch back. You summoned me here to question me like a criminal. To imply that the woman who saved my life is somehow a villain. To play political games with my existence. He placed his hands on Fudge's desk and leaned forward. Let me be clear, I am not your pawn. I am not Dumbledore's weapon. And I am absolutely not intimidated by a minister who's so scared of losing his position that he'd rather deny reality than face it. Fudge was sputtering. Umbridge's smile had curdled into something vicious. The two officials looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. The boy who lived has returned, Harry continued. But he's not the hero you were hoping for. He's not going to pose for photographs or give inspiring speeches or pretend everything is fine when it isn't. I'm going to do what needs to be done, stop Voldemort, protect the people I love, and I'm going to do it my way. You can help, or you can stay out of my way. But you do not get to question my family or my choices. He straightened, adjusting his robes with deliberate calm. This interview is over. If you have further questions, submit them in writing. My solicitor will respond. He turned and walked out, Andromeda and Dora falling into step beside him. Behind them, the minister's office erupted into raised voices and confusion. In the elevator, Dora let out a breath. Holy shit, Harry. Language, Andromeda murmured, but she was smiling. That was incredible. Did you see Fudge's face? I thought he was going to have a stroke. He might still. Harry's hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline, not fear. But they needed to hear it. They can't treat us like criminals for existing. Andromeda took his hand, squeezing gently. You were magnificent. Harry glanced at her, and the warmth in her eyes made everything else fade away. I learned from the best. Get a room, Dora muttered, but there was no heat in it. The elevator doors opened, and they walked out into the atrium, just in time for the cameras to start flashing. The Daily Prophet's evening edition was even worse than the morning one had been. Potter threatens Minister, I am not your pawn, boy who lived displays shocking arrogance in Ministry confrontation exclusive details inside. Harry read it while eating dinner, his expression somewhere between amused and resigned. They really don't like me. Rita Skeeter doesn't like anyone who refuses to play her games. Andromeda set a plate of roast chicken in front of him. She'll twist anything into a scandal. At least they spelled my name right. Small mercies. Andromeda sat across from him, picking at her own food. Harry, we need to talk about the safe house situation. What about it? This cottage isn't secure anymore. Too many people know where we are. Dumbledore, the Ministry, probably Death Eaters by now. She shook her head. We need to move. Somewhere defensible. I know. Harry set down the paper. I've been thinking about that. Grimmauld Place. Andromeda went still. My childhood home. It's under Fidelius' charm, right? From when it was Order headquarters. It was. I don't know if that's still active. Either way, it's the most defensible property we have access to. Black family wards, generations of protective magic, probably enough dark artifacts to arm a small militia. Harry met her eyes. And the locket might be there. The horcrux. Andromeda's jaw tightened. I haven't set foot in that house in 25 years. Not since I left. Not since my mother burned my name off the family tapestry. I know. I wouldn't ask if there was another option. There might be. We could keep running. Keep hiding. Hope they don't find us. Harry reached across the table, taking her hand. Or we could take a stand. Make Grimmauld Place ours. Turn their old fortress into our sanctuary. Andromeda stared at their intertwined fingers. You make it sound almost appealing. I make everything sound appealing. It's a gift. She laughed despite herself. Arrogant. Confident. There's a difference. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and then Andromeda sighed. Fine. We'll go to Grimmauld Place. But not tonight, I need to prepare. And Dora should come with us. 3 wands are better than 2 if something goes wrong. Agreed. Harry squeezed her hand. Thank you. I know this is hard for you. Everything worth doing is hard. She looked at him, and her expression softened. You're worth it. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Harry leaned forward, just slightly, a crack of apparition from outside shattered the silence. Harry was on his feet in an instant, wand in hand, moving toward the door. Andromeda was right behind him, her own wand drawn. Stay here, Harry said. Absolutely not. Andromeda, I said no. Her voice was steel. We face things together. That was the deal. Another crack. And another. Multiple arrivals, surrounding the cottage. Dora. Harry called up the stairs. Company. A muffled curse from above, then footsteps thundering down. Dora appeared, half-dressed in aura robes, wand at the ready. How many? At least 4. Maybe more. The front door exploded inward. Harry's shield was up before the debris finished falling, a shimmering barrier of golden light that deflected splinters and dust and the first volley of curses. Through the smoke, he counted figures, 6, 7, 8. All in Death Eater robes and masks. And at their head, laughing, was Bellatrix Lestrange. Hello, little family, she called, her voice sing-song and mad. Auntie Bella's come to visit. Harry didn't waste time on banter. His first curse shot through his own shield, a modification Andromeda had taught him, one-way barriers, and caught the nearest Death Eater in the chest. The man crumpled. "Spread out," Bellatrix ordered. "Don't kill the boy. The others are fair game." The cottage became a war zone. Harry fought like Andromeda had trained him, fast, brutal, efficient. No wasted movement. No theatrical dueling poses. Just curse after curse, shield and strike, using the furniture as cover and the tight hallways as choke points. A Death Eater tried to flank him. Harry spun, hit him with a bone breaker to the knee, then a stunner to the face. The man went down screaming. Andromeda was holding the kitchen entrance, dueling two Death Eaters simultaneously with the cold precision of someone who'd learned to fight in the darkest corners of wizarding society. Black family magic was vicious and creative, and she used every trick she knew, conjured serpents that went for throats, jinxes that made enemies see illusions, curses that turned the floor to quicksand. Dora was a whirlwind of color, her metamorphmagus abilities letting her duck and weave in ways that seemed impossible. She'd shifted her legs longer for reach, her arms faster for wand movement, and she was laughing as she fought. "Is this all you've got?" she shouted. "I fight tougher blokes in training." Bellatrix ignored the chaos, her eyes fixed on Harry. She moved through the destruction like it didn't touch her, deflecting spells almost lazily, heading straight for him. "You're good, baby Potter," she crooned. "But are you good enough?" She attacked. Harry had never faced anyone this fast. Bellatrix's wand was a blur, spells coming so quickly they blended together, cutting curses, bludgeoning hexes, something purple and vicious that he didn't recognize. He blocked, dodged, parried, but he was being driven back, losing ground with every exchange. "That's black family magic." Bellatrix laughed, delighted. "My sister taught you well. But she always was soft, she never learned the really fun stuff." She hit him with something that burned, and Harry stumbled. His shield flickered. Bellatrix's wand came up, aimed at his chest. Crucio. Harry dropped beneath the curse, rolled, and came up with his wand pointed at her face. Sectum Sempra. The dark cutting curse, something he'd found in an old potion's text and modified to work as combat magic, slashed across Bellatrix's shoulder. She shrieked, more in surprise than pain, and blood bloomed across her robes. "You little beast." But she was grinning, wild and ecstatic. "You actually hurt me. How delightful." She pressed the attack with renewed fury, and Harry gave ground again, but now he had a red on her style. She was powerful, incredibly so, but she was also overconfident. She expected to overwhelm him. She didn't expect him to adapt. He stopped blocking and started redirecting, using her own force against her. Her cutting curse went past his ear and shattered a window. Her bludgeoning hex hit the wall beside him and brought down plaster. Each near miss was actually a calculated dodge, positioning for his counter. Confringo. The blasting curse caught Bellatrix in the hip. She spun, hit the wall hard, and for just a moment her guard dropped. Harry didn't hesitate. He hit her with a 3-curse chain, stunning spell, binding curse, silencing hex, and she crumpled, wrapped in conjured ropes, unable to speak or move. The remaining Death Eaters saw their leader fall. 2 of them disapparated immediately. The others tried to fight on but lost heart quickly. Andromeda and Dora overwhelmed them in seconds. Then it was over. The cottage was wrecked, furniture shattered, walls scorched, windows blown out, but they were alive. Harry stood over Bellatrix, breathing hard, blood trickling from a cut on his cheek. She glared up at him with mad eyes, struggling against her bonds. "What do we do with her?" Dora asked, limping over. She'd taken a hex to her leg but seemed otherwise okay. "Turn her over to the Aurors," Andromeda said, joining them. She looked at her sister, tied up and helpless on the floor of a ruined cottage, and her expression was unreadable. She escaped from Azkaban. They'll want her back. Bellatrix made furious muffled noises through the silencing hex. She knows where we are now, Harry said. Even if we move, she'll have reported our location to Voldemort before she came here. Then we move immediately. Tonight. Andromeda's voice was firm. Grimmauld Place. It's the only option now. Harry nodded. He knelt beside Bellatrix, meeting her wild gaze. You can tell your master something for me, he said quietly. I'm not the boy he expected. I'm not weak, I'm not ignorant, and I'm not afraid. When he comes for me, and he will come, I'll be ready. He stood, turning to Andromeda. Let's go. Grimmauld Place was everything Andromeda had warned him about. The house was dark, dusty, and saturated with dark magic that pressed against Harry's senses like a physical weight. The moment they crossed the threshold, the portraits on the walls began shrieking, blood traitors. Mud bloods. Filth in the ancient house of black. Lovely, Dora muttered. This is where you grew up. My childhood was complicated. Andromeda raised her wand and began silencing the portraits one by one. Mother had strong opinions about everything. Especially blood purity. The loudest portrait, a severe-looking woman with Andromeda's bone structure and none of her warmth, was screaming the loudest. Andromeda. Disgrace. Traitor to your blood. You dare return to this house after, hello, mother, Andromeda said coolly. Still dead, I see. Pity. She drew her wand across the portrait in a complex pattern, and the curtains on either side slammed shut, cutting off the tirade mid-word. Harry looked around, taking in the peeling wallpaper, the cobwebbed chandeliers, the general air of decay. Cozy. It wasn't always like this. Before father died, before mother went completely mad, it was almost nice. Andromeda shook her head. But that was a long time ago. Can we make it livable? With work. Lots of work. The house elf might help, if he's still alive. House elf. As if summoned by the word, a small creature appeared with a crack, ancient, decrepit, wrapped in a filthy pillowcase, staring at them with suspicious eyes. Blood traitor mistress returns, it croaked. Creature knew she would, one day. Come to steal Master Regulus's things, has she? Come to defile the noble house of black with her half-blood spawn. Creature. Andromeda's voice was measured. I've come to take up residence here. As is my right as the last surviving free black. Mistress Bellatrix, is a convicted criminal, escaped from Azkaban. She has no claim. Andromeda stepped forward, and despite the elf's obvious hostility, it shrank back. I am claiming this house and everything in it, by right of blood. You will serve me as you served my mother. Is that understood? Creature's face twisted with displeasure, but something in Andromeda's tone, or perhaps the old magic of the house recognizing a black daughter, compelled obedience. Yes, mistress. Creature serves. Good. Start by cleaning this entry hall. I want the house habitable by morning. The elf disappeared with a grudging pop, and Harry let out a breath. That was intense. House elves respect strength. Show weakness and they'll undermine you at every turn. Andromeda moved deeper into the house, her wand casting light ahead of her. Come. We need to secure the perimeter and activate the old wards. They spent hours working through the house, clearing dark artifacts that had gone feral, reinforcing ancient protective enchantments, warding every entrance against intrusion. It was exhausting work, physically and magically, but by the time dawn crept through the grimy windows, Grimmauld Place was secure. Harry collapsed onto a dusty sofa in what might have been a drawing room, every muscle aching. Andromeda sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. We survived, she said quietly. Was there ever any doubt? Always. That's what makes survival meaningful. Harry turned his head to look at her. In the grey pre-dawn light, with shadows under her eyes and dust in her hair, she was still the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "Come here," he said. She came. Settled against him, her head on his shoulder, her body warm against his side. They fit together like they'd been designed for it. "I never thought I'd be back in this house," she murmured. "I swore I'd never set foot here again. I'm sorry. I know it's hard, don't." She tilted her head to look at him. "I'm here because I chose to be. Because protecting you matters more than old ghosts." Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. "You're worth more to me than any painful memory." Harry kissed her forehead, a gentle brush of lips against skin. "When this is over, when Voldemort's dead and the world stops trying to tear us apart, I want to take you somewhere. Anywhere you want. Somewhere warm and quiet, where no one knows our names. That sounds like heaven. It'll be real. I promise." She smiled, soft and sad and hopeful all at once. "I'll hold you to that." They sat together in the growing light, and for a moment, the war and the danger and the judgment of the world felt very far away. Ted Tonks arrived 3 days later. Harry didn't recognize him at first, a stocky, sandy-haired man standing on the front step, looking deeply uncomfortable. But Andromeda's sharp intake of breath told him everything he needed to know. "Ted. Andromeda." He shifted his weight, not quite meeting her eyes. I saw the papers. About the attack, about you moving here. I wanted to make sure you were all right. We're fine. You could have sent an owl. I know. I just..." He trailed off, then seemed to steel himself. "Can I come in? Please?" Andromeda didn't move for a long moment. Then she stepped aside, and Ted walked into the house he'd never been welcome in, the ancestral home of a family that had despised him for having the wrong blood. Harry watched from the drawing-room doorway, not quite eavesdropping but not leaving either. Dora had made herself scarce the moment her father arrived. She still wasn't speaking to him, hadn't since he'd left 5 years ago. "The house looks better than I expected," Ted said, glancing around. "I always imagined it would be darker. More dungeons and torture chambers." "The dungeons are in the basement. The torture chamber was converted to a wine cellar in the 1800s. Ted laughed, then stopped when he realized she wasn't joking. "Right. Of course." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, Andromeda, I know I don't have any right to be here. I know what I did, leaving, staying away, not even writing. You had every right to leave. I knew the life I was asking you to live wasn't fair. The isolation, the secrets, the constant fear of discovery." Andromeda's voice was measured, controlled. "What you didn't have the right to do was abandon your daughter. She needed her father, and you weren't there. I know. I was a coward." "Yes. You were." Silence stretched between them. Harry could see Ted's hands shaking slightly, could see the effort it took for him not to flee. "I want to make it right," Ted said finally. "I know I probably can't. But I want to try. I want to be part of this family again, whatever that looks like now." Andromeda stared at him for a long moment. "A lot has changed, Ted. More than you know. The papers said the Potter boy was living with you. That he was raised as your son." Ted's eyes flickered to the doorway, where Harry was standing. "Is that him?" Harry stepped forward. "Harry Potter. It's nice to finally meet you." Ted took him in, the confident posture, the watchful eyes, the way he positioned himself protectively near Andromeda. Something flickered across Ted's face. Confusion, maybe. Or the beginning of understanding. "You're not what I expected," Ted said slowly. "The papers made you sound like... I don't know. A weapon. Something dangerous. I can be dangerous. When I need to be. But not to us. Not to my family. Your family is my family. Harry met Ted's gaze steadily. Andromeda raised me. Dora's my sister. I would die for them. Beyond that, I don't think you and I have much to discuss. Ted's eyes narrowed. He looked at Harry, then at Andromeda, then back at Harry. Something was clearly bothering him, some detail he couldn't quite articulate. You're very protective of her, Ted said. Of Andromeda. She protected me for 16 years. The least I can do is return the favor. That's admirable. But Ted didn't sound convinced. He was still looking between them, noting the way they stood, the invisible threads of connection. Andromeda, can we talk? In private? Andromeda glanced at Harry. He shrugged slightly, your choice, and stepped back. There's a study down the hall, she said. We can talk there. They disappeared into the depths of the house, and Harry was left standing in the drawing room, wondering how badly this was going to go. He found out 20 minutes later, when raised voices echoed through the corridors. Can't be serious. He's a child, Andromeda. He's basically our son. He's not our son. I raised him, yes, but that doesn't make him what? Your lover. Because that's what it looks like. The way he watches you, the way you moved toward him when I looked at you wrong, Ted, you're being ridiculous, am I? Am I really? Because I've seen the way people look at each other when they're in love, Andromeda, and whatever is between you and that boy is not maternal. Silence. Then, get out. Andromeda, I said get out. You left us. You abandoned your daughter, your wife, your entire family because the life was too hard. You don't get to come back now and judge me for what? What did you do, Andromeda? More silence. Harry was moving before he consciously decided to, his feet carrying him toward the study. He found them facing each other across a dusty desk, both flushed with anger. Andromeda's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Ted's face was a mask of horror and betrayal. I knew it, Ted breathed. The moment I saw you together, I knew something was wrong. But I didn't want to believe. There's nothing wrong about it, Harry said from the doorway. Both of them spun to face him. I love her. She loves me. That's the only thing that matters. Ted's face twisted. You're 17. She raised you. This is disgusting, this is abuse, don't. Harry's voice went cold. Don't you dare accuse her of that. She never touched me inappropriately, never manipulated me, never did anything until I was of age and told her how I felt. If anyone's to blame for this, for us, it's me. You're a child. You can't, I'm a legal adult. I've been trained in combat since I was 7, survived more in my 17 years than you have in your entire life, and made every choice that led me here with full knowledge of what I was doing. Harry stepped into the room, positioning himself beside Andromeda. I'm not a victim. I'm not confused. I know exactly what I want, and what I want is her. Ted looked between them, his expression cycling through horror, disgust, betrayal, and finally something like grief. This is insane. You're both insane. Perhaps, Andromeda said quietly. But it's our choice to make. Not yours. And Nymphadora? Does she know about this? Yes. Dora's voice came from behind Harry. He turned to see her standing in the doorway, arms crossed, her hair a flat, angry red. I know. I've known for a while. And you're okay with it? I'm adjusting. Dora moved to stand beside Harry, presenting a united front. It's weird, Dad. Really weird. But they're happy. Happier than I've seen either of them in years. And if you think I'm going to let you waltz back in after 5 years of nothing and destroy that happiness, you've got another thing coming. Ted stared at his daughter. Nymphadora, don't call me that. Her voice cracked. You don't get to call me that anymore. You don't get to call me anything, because you left. You left and you didn't look back, and Mum cried herself to sleep for months, and Harry was the one who held this family together. Not you. Him. I made a mistake, yeah, you did. And now you're making another one. Dora's eyes were bright with tears she refused to shed. Leave. Now. Before you make things worse. Ted looked at each of them in turn, his daughter, his wife, the young man who'd somehow become the center of their strange family. Harry could see the moment his resolve crumbled. This isn't over, Ted said quietly. I won't. I can't just pretend this is normal. No one asked you to pretend anything, Andromeda replied. But if you expose us, if you go to the papers or the ministry, I won't. Ted's voice was hollow. Whatever else I am, I'm not a monster. I won't destroy my own family, even if. He shook his head. I need time. To think. To process. Take all the time you need. Andromeda's voice was steady, but Harry could feel her trembling beside him. Just remember, whatever you decide about us, Nymphadora deserves a father. If you can find a way to be that for her, despite everything, then perhaps there's still something to salvage. Ted nodded slowly, not quite meeting anyone's eyes. Then he turned and walked out, his footsteps echoing through the old house until the front door opened and closed. The three of them stood in silence. Well, Dora said finally. That was awful. Yes, Andromeda agreed. It was. Harry took her hand. She gripped back tightly. I'm sorry, he said. I shouldn't have interfered, don't. She turned to face him. You defended us. Defended me. That's not something to apologize for. He's going to make trouble. Probably. But that's a problem for tomorrow. She managed a weak smile. For now, I need a drink. Possibly several drinks. I'll join you, Dora said. Pretty sure there's a wine cellar somewhere in this murder house. Former torture chamber, Harry reminded her. Even better. Nothing says family bonding like drinking in a converted torture chamber. Despite everything, the confrontation, the exposure, the uncertain future, Harry laughed. And when Andromeda leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder, he wrapped an arm around her and held on. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The days that followed were tense. Ted didn't go to the papers, Harry had been monitoring obsessively, but he also didn't return. Dora threw herself into Auror training with renewed intensity, coming home exhausted every night, too tired to think about the mess her family had become. And Harry and Andromeda navigated. They'd crossed a line with that kiss, with the confessions that followed, and there was no going back. But the reality of their situation was more complicated than simple love. She was still technically married. He was still seen by the world as her adopted son. Every public interaction had to be carefully managed to avoid suspicion. In private, though, things were different. They slept in the same room now, the master suite, which Andromeda had claimed and cleansed of her mother's lingering presence. They didn't do more than sleep side by side, bodies curved toward each other in the darkness, but even that felt like a revolution. I never thought I'd feel this way again, Andromeda murmured one night, her voice soft in the darkness. After Ted, I thought that part of my life was over. That I was too old, too damaged, too complicated for anyone to want. You're not old. I'm 45. You're beautiful. Harry turned to face her, close enough to feel her breath on his skin. Every time I look at you, I can't believe you're real. Can't believe you're mine. I'm not anyone's. I belong to myself. I know. That's not what I meant. He brushed her hair back from her face. I meant, you chose me. Out of everyone, every option, you chose me. That feels like a miracle. It wasn't a choice. Her hand came up to cover his. It was an inevitability. I tried to fight it, tried to convince myself it was wrong, but every time I looked at you. She shook her head. You were always going to end up here. We both were. Is that so bad? No. She smiled, soft and real. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and she kissed him back, and for a while the war and the danger and the judgment of the world faded away. Dumbledore sent an owl 3 weeks after they'd settled into Grimmauld Place. Harry, I hope this finds you well. I wanted to inform you of developments that may affect our mutual interests. The locket has been located. As you suspected, it was in Grimmauld Place all along. Creature had hidden it on Master Regulus's orders, years ago. The elf has agreed to surrender it, though he was most distressed by the request. Additionally, I have made progress in identifying the cup's location. Bellatrix Lestrange's vault at Gringotts, as you suggested. Breaking into a high-security vault presents challenges, but not insurmountable ones. I propose we meet to discuss strategy. The 3 Broomsticks, Saturday afternoon. Bring whomever you wish. Albus Dumbledore P.S. I have heard rumors about your living situation. I make no judgments. Love is a rare and precious thing, wherever it blooms. Harry read the postscript twice, his heart pounding. Dumbledore knew. Or suspected. Either way, the message was clear: I know your secret, and I'm not threatening you with it. Yet. What does it say? Andromeda asked, looking up from her own correspondence. Dumbledore's found the locket. And he knows about us. Andromeda went very still. How? Doesn't say. Could be legilimency, could be informants, could just be deduction. Harry set down the letter. He says he's not judging. Dumbledore judges everything. He just does it quietly, behind a grandfatherly smile. I know. But if he wanted to use this against us, he wouldn't warn us first. Harry thought it through. He needs me. For the horcruxes, for Voldemort, for all of it. As long as I'm useful, he won't move against us. And when you stop being useful, then we'll deal with it. Harry met her eyes. One crisis at a time. Andromeda sighed, but she nodded. The meeting. Are you going? Yes. And I want you there. Harry, we established this already. Whatever we face together. That includes manipulative old wizards with hero complexes. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. You really aren't afraid of anything, are you? I told you before. I'm afraid of losing you. Everything else is just details. She rose from her chair, crossed to him, and kissed him softly. Then let's go make sure we don't lose. Saturday arrived cold and grey, autumn closing in despite the calendar still claiming summer. Harry and Andromeda apparat to Hogsmeade and walked to the 3 Broomsticks together, side by side, not quite touching but obviously connected. The villagers stared and whispered, but Harry had grown used to that. Dumbledore was waiting in a private room at the back of the pub, alone except for a half-finished glass of mead. He looked tired, older than he had at their previous meeting, his blackened hand trembling slightly as he set down his drink. Harry. Andromeda. Thank you for coming. You said you found the locket. Harry sat across from him, Andromeda taking the chair beside him. Where is it? Dumbledore produced a heavy golden locket from his robes, its face engraved with a serpentine-esque creature had it. He'd been trying to destroy it for years, on Regulus's dying orders, but without the proper means. Harry reached out and took the locket. The moment his fingers touched the cold metal, he felt it, a pulse of something dark and hungry, pressing against his mind, whispering promises of power. It's strong, he said quietly. Indeed. The soul fragment within is fully conscious, and it knows it's in danger. It will try to corrupt anyone who carries it. Dumbledore's eyes were sharp despite his exhaustion. You can feel it, can't you? The connection? Yes. Harry set the locket on the table between them. The thing in my scar responds to it. Like recognizing like. That will make it harder to destroy. And harder still with the fragment inside you amplifying the horcruxes' influence. Dumbledore leaned forward. Harry, we need to discuss what happens after the external horcruxes are destroyed. You mean how to get rid of the one in my head without killing me? Precisely. Andromeda's hand found Harry's under the table, gripping tightly. Have you found a way? Possibly. Dumbledore's voice was cautious. The Resurrection Stone, one of the Deathly Hallows, has unique properties related to souls and death. I believe, with proper preparation, it might be used to draw the fragment out while leaving Harry's own soul intact. The Resurrection Stone. Harry's mind raced. The second Hallow. Where is it? Inside the ring I destroyed. The Horcrux is gone, but the stone remains. Dumbledore produced another object from his robes, a cracked black ring with a triangular symbol etched into its face. I've kept it for precisely this purpose. Harry stared at the ring. The Resurrection Stone. The ability to summon the dead, or, apparently, to manipulate souls in other ways. You've been planning this, he said slowly. For how long? Since I realized what you were. What you carried. Dumbledore's expression was complicated. I know you don't trust me, Harry. I know you believe I was prepared to sacrifice you. And you're not entirely wrong. There was a time when I believed your death might be necessary. Unavoidable. What changed? You did. Dumbledore smiled, sad and genuine. The boy I expected, the weapon I planned to forge, would have been easy to sacrifice. Raised in misery, desperate for approval, eager to prove himself worthy of love. But you. He shook his head. You were raised with love. You know your worth. You would never accept death as an inevitability, and you have the power to back up that refusal. So you found another way. I'm finding another way. The Resurrection Stone Gambit is theoretical. It might not work. But it's a chance, a real chance, and that's more than I had before. Dumbledore met Harry's eyes. I've made mistakes, Harry. Many of them. I let the greater good blind me to individual suffering. I treated people as chess pieces instead of human beings. But I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to give you a future, not just a sacrifice. Harry studied the old man's face, looking for the manipulation, the hidden angle. He found exhaustion. Sincerity. And something that might have been regret. The cup, Harry said finally. In Bellatrix's vault. How do we get it? Relief flickered across Dumbledore's features. Ah. Now that is where things become interesting. The plan was insane. Harry said as much, 3 days later, standing outside Gringotts with Andromeda, Dora, and a goblin named Griphook who'd agreed to help in exchange for something Dumbledore had promised. Insane, Harry repeated. We're going to walk into the most secure vault in Wizarding Britain, past guards and dragons and who knows what else, steal a priceless artifact, and walk back out. Not walk, Andromeda corrected. Run. Very quickly. Oh, that's reassuring. Griphook scowled up at them. If you've changed your mind, we haven't. Harry adjusted his robes. Just, acknowledging the insanity. Helps with the nerves. They went in. The upper levels of Gringotts were normal enough, marble floors, suspicious goblins, the usual bank atmosphere. But the Lestrange vault was in the deepest level, accessible only by a cart that plunged through twisting tunnels filled with increasingly dangerous security measures. The thief's downfall, a waterfall that washed away all magical concealment, nearly exposed them immediately. Griphook produced amulets that protected against its effects, but only just. The dragon guarding the deepest vaults was another matter entirely. We're not fighting that, Dora said flatly, staring at the massive Ukrainian iron belly chained before the final corridor. That's a dragon. An actual dragon. I'm not fighting a dragon. We're not fighting it, Griphook said. We're persuading it. With what? The goblin produced a pair of metal clankers, instruments that created a discordant ringing sound. The dragon has been trained to expect pain when it hears this noise. It will retreat. That's horrible. It's effective. The clankers worked. The dragon flinched back, chains rattling, and they slipped past into the final corridor. The Lestrange vault door loomed before them, covered in intricate protective enchantments. Griphook approached it with something like reverence. Only Lestrange blood can open this door, he said. Or. He produced a withered hand from his robes. A piece of it. Is that, Bellatrix Lestrange's left hand? Recovered from Azkaban after her escape. She didn't leave intact. Harry decided not to ask for details. The hand pressed against the door, and the vault opened. Inside was chaos. Treasure piled on treasure, gold and jewels and artifacts beyond counting. And somewhere in this mess, a single golden cup. Don't touch anything, Griphook warned. The treasure is cursed. Contact will multiply it endlessly, and the copies are hot enough to burn. Of course they are. Harry scanned the vault, looking for the cup. This would be too easy otherwise. He found it on a high shelf, nestled between a suit of armor and what appeared to be a mummified hand. Reaching it would require climbing over treasure that he couldn't touch. Accio cup, he tried. Nothing happened. Anti-summoning charms, obviously. I can levitate it, Andromeda said. If I'm careful. She raised her wand, focused, and sent a delicate thread of magic toward the cup. It wobbled, lifted, and began floating toward them. A piece of treasure shifted. Touched another piece. Both multiplied, spawning hot copies that cascaded downward, setting off more contact, more multiplication, more burning metal flooding the vault. Run! Harry grabbed the cup from midair as it fell, shoved it into his bag, and sprinted for the door. The vault was filling with molten treasure, a burning tide that would crush them in seconds. They made it through the door and Griphook sealed it behind them, but the noise had attracted attention. Goblin guards were shouting, the dragon was roaring, and somewhere above them alarms were blaring. New plan, Harry said. We're not sneaking out. What are we doing instead? Something very stupid. He ran toward the dragon. Later, clinging to the back of a panicked Ukrainian iron belly as it burst through the ceiling of Gringotts and took flight over London, Harry decided that very stupid might have been an understatement. Andromeda was pressed against him, arms wrapped around his waist, shouting something that was lost in the wind. Dora had transformed her hair into something aerodynamic and was laughing maniacally. Griphook was nowhere to be seen. He'd disappeared during the chaos, presumably to collect whatever Dumbledore had promised him. The dragon wheeled over the city, confused and free for the first time in decades, then headed north toward open country. When it descended toward a lake, they jumped, a 30-foot drop into cold water that knocked the breath from Harry's lungs. They surfaced gasping, swam to shore, and collapsed on the rocky beach. Never, Dora panted, doing that again. Ever. Agreed, Andromeda said. Her hair was plastered to her face, her robes soaked and muddy, and she was still the most beautiful thing Harry had ever seen. We got it though. Harry pulled the cup from his bag, somehow still dry, protected by the bag's enchantments. One more horcrux down. Technically. We have to destroy it first. Details. Harry lay back on the rocks, staring up at the grey sky. We robbed Gringotts. We rode a dragon. We're alive. I'm calling that a win. Andromeda crawled over to him, collapsing against his side. You're insane. You love me anyway. Unfortunately. But she was smiling, and when she kissed him, wet and cold and perfect, Harry knew that whatever came next, they could handle it. Together. The horcrux count was climbing. Diary, destroyed by Dumbledore. Ring, destroyed by Dumbledore. Locket, in their possession, awaiting destruction. Cup, in their possession, awaiting destruction. Ravenclaw's artifact, still unknown. Nagini, still with Voldemort. Harry, still cursed. We need basilisk venom, Harry said, studying the locket and cup on the kitchen table. Or fiend fire. Or, the sword of Gryffindor, Andromeda supplied. It killed a basilisk, which means it absorbed the venom. It can destroy horcruxes. And where is the sword? Dumbledore has it. In his office at Hogwarts. Harry nodded slowly. Then I need to go to Hogwarts. We need to go to Hogwarts. Andromeda, if you finish that sentence with, "It's too dangerous, I will hex you." She crossed her arms. We face things together. That's been established. Multiple times. I'm not having this argument again. Harry looked at her, stubborn, fierce, completely unwilling to let him protect her at the cost of leaving her behind. He'd never loved her more. Fine, he said. We go to Hogwarts. Together. Dora raised her hand. Can I come? I've always wanted to see the castle properly. Only visited once for a tournament when I was a kid. You went to Hogwarts, Harry pointed out. For like 2 minutes. Got sorted, went to classes, left. Never really explored. She grinned. Come on, it'll be fun. Sneaking into a castle, stealing a magic sword, probably fighting some bad guys along the way. This isn't a game, Nymphadora. Don't call me that. And I know it's not a game. But if you think I'm letting my mum and my brother walk into danger without backup, you're mental. Harry looked at Andromeda. She shrugged slightly. Your call. Fine, he said. You can come. But if things go sideways, I'm an Auror trainee. I know how to handle myself in a fight. I was going to say if things go sideways, you cover Andromeda. No matter what happens to me. Dora's expression flickered. Harry. Promise me. A long pause. Then, I promise. But nothing's going to happen to you. We're going to walk in, get the sword, destroy these creepy soul jars, and be home in time for dinner. Harry wished he shared her confidence. The message from Sirius arrived that night. Harry, I know we haven't talked much since I came back, there's been a lot happening, and I wasn't sure how to approach you after learning about everything. But I've heard rumors that you're planning to move against Voldemort's horcruxes, and I want to help. I'm not asking for forgiveness for being absent all these years. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm just asking for a chance to be useful. To protect my godson, the way I should have from the beginning. Meet me at the Shrieking Shack tomorrow at noon. Alone or with whoever you want, I don't care. Just, let me help. Sirius Harry read the letter 3 times, trying to parse the emotions behind it. Sirius had been his parents' best friend. His godfather. The man who should have raised him, if things had gone differently. Instead, Andromeda had raised him. And whatever Harry felt about the life he might have had was complicated by how much he loved the life he actually got. You should go, Andromeda said, reading over his shoulder. He deserves a chance. You trust him? I trust that he loved your parents. And that he spent 16 years suffering for crimes he didn't commit. She touched his shoulder. He's not the enemy, Harry. He's just another piece of a complicated puzzle. Harry nodded slowly. I'll meet him. But you're coming with me. Of course I am. The Shrieking Shack was as decrepit as its reputation suggested, a sagging, boarded-up building on the edge of Hogsmeade, supposedly the most haunted structure in Britain. In reality, it was just the place where Remus Lupin had transformed during his school years, but the locals didn't need to know that. Sirius was waiting inside, pacing nervously. He looked better than the last time Harry had seen him, less gaunt, less haunted, but there was still a wildness in his eyes that never quite went away. Harry. He stopped pacing when they entered. And Andromeda. Thank you for coming. You said you wanted to help, Harry said. Help with what? Whatever you're planning. The horcruxes, the war, all of it. Sirius ran a hand through his hair. I've been useless for years. Running, hiding, feeling sorry for myself. But when I heard you were alive, when I realized my cousin had raised you, kept you safe, turned you into. He gestured vaguely. Whatever you are now. Someone strong. Someone who fights back. I realized I needed to step up. And what about the other thing? Andromeda's voice was cool. The thing you're carefully not mentioning. Sirius froze. You mean? You know about me and Harry. I can see it in your face. So let's address it directly, shall we? Does it change your offer of help? A long silence. Sirius looked between them, and Harry could practically see him wrestling with competing impulses. It's weird, he said finally. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. You raised him, Andromeda. He's like a son to you. And yet he's not my son. Not by blood, not by law, not in any way that matters. He's 17. Legally an adult. He's half your age. Age is just a number, as the Muggles say. Andromeda moved to stand beside Harry, their shoulders touching. I'm not asking for your approval, Sirius. I'm asking if you can work with us despite your discomfort. Sirius was quiet for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. You know, James would have lost his mind. Lily too, probably. Their son, with someone twice his age, raised as his mother. He shook his head. But they're not here. And I've spent too long holding on to the past to keep doing it now. He stepped forward, extending his hand to Harry. I'm in. Whatever you need, however I can help. Just, maybe give me some time to adjust to the weird parts. Harry took his hand. Fair enough. And you? Sirius turned to Andromeda. Take care of him. Or I'll haunt you from beyond the grave. You won't have to. Andromeda's voice softened. I've spent 16 years protecting him. That's not going to change. Sirius nodded, satisfied. Then let's talk strategy. What's the plan? Harry laid it out, the remaining horcruxes, the trip to Hogwarts, the eventual confrontation with Voldemort. Sirius listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with each revelation. The thing in your scar, he said when Harry finished. Dumbledore thinks he can remove it. He thinks he might be able to. It's not guaranteed. And if he can't? Then I find another way. Or. Harry met Sirius's eyes. Or I don't. But I'm not giving up before we try everything. Sirius nodded slowly. You're braver than I ever was. Than most people ever are. He clapped Harry on the shoulder. Your parents would be proud. I know I am. Something loosened in Harry's chest. He hadn't realized how much he'd wanted to hear that, from someone who'd known James and Lily, who could speak for them in a way no one else could. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. We've got work to do. Sirius's grin was sharp and eager. When do we leave for Hogwarts? They left the next day. The group that approached Hogwarts Castle was small but capable, Harry, Andromeda, Dora, and Sirius. Dumbledore had been informed and had agreed to let them enter through a secret passage from Hogsmeade, one of many that Sirius knew from his troublemaking days. This one goes straight to the 4th floor, Sirius explained as they crawled through a dusty tunnel. Comes out behind a tapestry of some drunk wizards trying to teach trolls ballet. Filch never checks it. How many secret passages are there in this castle? Harry asked. 7 that I know of. Probably more. The marauders mapped them all, once upon a time. The map, Andromeda said. I've heard of it. Where is it now? No idea. Lost track of it years ago. Probably confiscated and destroyed. They emerged into a dim corridor, the castle quiet around them. It was summer, no students, minimal staff. Perfect for an unauthorized incursion. Dumbledore met them near his office, looking more exhausted than ever. His blackened hand shook visibly as he led them up the spiral staircase. The sword is in my office, he said. As is the stone. We can destroy the horcruxes tonight, and then. He paused. And then we discuss your situation, Harry. The office was cluttered and strange, silver instruments whirring, portraits of former headmasters watching with curious eyes. The sword of Gryffindor hung on the wall, gleaming softly. And on the desk, inside a protective case, sat the cracked ring with its triangular stone. Harry approached the sword first. It felt right in his hand, light, balanced, hungry for dark magic in a way that made him slightly uncomfortable. The locket, he said. Andromeda placed it on the desk. The horcrux seemed to sense what was coming, its surface roiled, shadows pressing against the gold. Harry raised the sword. The locket screamed. Voices poured out of it, his parents, Andromeda, everyone he loved, begging him to stop, telling him he was making a mistake, that he was evil, that he was unloved. He brought the sword down. The locket shattered. A wisp of darkness burst from the remains and dissipated into nothing. One down, Harry said, his voice steady despite the sweat on his brow. Next. The cup went more easily. He knew what to expect now, and when it tried to show him visions of Andromeda leaving him, of everyone he loved dying, he ignored them. Just focused on the sword, the motion, the destruction of something that should never have existed. 2 horcruxes destroyed. 2 more to find. And then. The Ravenclaw artifact, Dumbledore said. I believe it's hidden here, in the castle. The Grey Lady, Ravenclaw's house ghost, may know where. And Nagini? With Voldemort. Always with Voldemort. Dumbledore's expression was grim. That one will have to wait until the final confrontation. And me? Dumbledore picked up the ring, the resurrection stone dark against his withered palm. That, we should discuss privately. The others waited outside while Harry and Dumbledore talked. The stone works by calling forth shades of the dead, Dumbledore explained. Echoes of souls that have passed beyond. In theory, it might be used to summon the fragment of Voldemort within you, pull it free while leaving your own soul intact. In theory. I won't lie to you, Harry. I don't know if this will work. The magic involved is ancient and barely understood. You could survive perfectly intact, or I could die. Yes. Harry considered this. He'd known, ever since learning about the horcrux in his scar, that his survival wasn't guaranteed. But hearing it stated so baldly still hit hard. What are the odds, he asked. Impossible to calculate. Perhaps 50-50. Perhaps worse. And if I don't try? If I just live with the fragment forever? Then Voldemort cannot truly be destroyed. Some part of him will always exist, always capable of returning, always connected to you. Dumbledore's eyes were old and sad. You would never be free of him, Harry. Not truly. Harry thought about Andromeda. About the life they were building together, the future they'd talked about. About how unfair it would be to put her through this, to ask her to watch him risk everything when they'd only just found each other. I need to talk to her, he said. Before I decide anything. Of course. Take whatever time you need. Dumbledore stood, wincing as his cursed hand twinged. I'll be here when you're ready. He found Andromeda in the corridor, pacing. She stopped when she saw his face. What did he say? Harry told her. Everything, the resurrection stone, the risks, the uncertainty. When he finished, she was pale but composed. So you might die. Yes. And if you don't try, you'll never be free of Voldemort. Also yes. She stepped forward, cupping his face in her hands. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her voice was steady. I can't lose you, she said. I can't. After everything we've been through, after finally admitting how we feel, I know. But I also can't ask you to live with that thing inside you forever. Chained to a monster for the rest of your life. She pressed her forehead to his. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. But I need you to know, if you do this, if you take this risk, I'll be there. Right beside you. No matter what happens. I love you, Harry said. I love you too. So much it terrifies me. She kissed him, soft and desperate. Promise me you'll fight. Promise me you won't give up. I promise. They held each other in the dim corridor, two people clinging to hope in a world that kept trying to tear it away. And somewhere in the castle, in the hidden room where the last Ravenclaw artifact waited to be found, something stirred. The war was coming. Chapter 3, claimed Remus Lupin lived in a shabby flat in Manchester, the kind of place that smelled of old books and quiet desperation. Harry found him there 3 days after the conversation with Dumbledore, following directions Sirius had provided. The werewolf answered the door looking exhausted and weary. His robes were patched, his hair streaked with grey, his eyes carrying the weight of too many full moons and too few friends. Harry Potter. Remus's voice was hoarse. Sirius said you might come. Can I come in? Remus stepped aside without a word. The flat was small but tidy, books stacked on every surface, a single photograph on the mantel showing 4 young men laughing at the camera. Harry recognized his father immediately, the messy black hair, the glasses, the arrogant tilt of his chin. Beside him stood Sirius, younger and wilder, and Remus himself, looking almost healthy. And on the end, shorter than the others, a rat-faced boy who Harry knew had destroyed everything. Peter Pettigrew, Harry said, studying the photograph. Where is he now? No one knows. He's been in hiding since that night. Remus moved to stand beside him. Sirius spent years searching. Never found him. We'll find him eventually. He's the key to clearing Sirius's name officially. Is that why you're here? To talk about Peter? No. Harry turned to face him. I'm here because I need allies. Real allies, not people who want to use me. Sirius trusts you. That's enough for me to give you a chance. Remus studied him with those tired, knowing eyes. You're not what I expected. When Sirius told me Andromeda raised you, I thought. I don't know what I thought. But not this. What is this? Someone who talks like a general. Who moves like a fighter. Who looks at the world like it's a problem to be solved rather than something to be afraid of. Remus shook his head. James was brave, but he was also reckless. He charged into things without thinking. You plan. Calculate. It's unsettling, honestly. Andromeda taught me that charging in gets people killed. Better to think first, act second. A black philosophy if I ever heard one. But Remus was almost smiling. What do you need from me? Information. You were close to my parents, to Sirius, to the original order. You know things that aren't in any history book, personalities, weaknesses, alliances. And you know about werewolves, which means you might have contacts in communities the Ministry ignores. You want me to be your spymaster. I want you to be my friend. The spymaster thing is a bonus. Remus laughed, surprised and genuine. You're certainly direct. Life's too short for games. Harry extended his hand. What do you say? Remus hesitated for only a moment before taking it. I say your parents would be proud. And I say yes. They talked for hours. Remus filled in gaps that Andromeda's research had missed, details about the original war, about Voldemort's tactics, about the Death Eaters and their hierarchies. He spoke about James and Lily with a mixture of love and grief that made Harry's chest ache. Your mother was brilliant, Remus said, staring into his tea. Not just academically, though she was that too. She had this way of seeing to the heart of things. Of understanding what really mattered when everyone else was caught up in the surface. And my father? James was complicated. He could be arrogant, cruel even, especially when he was young. He bullied people he saw as beneath him, Severus Snape particularly. Remus's expression darkened. But he grew out of it. By the end, he was one of the best men I knew. Loyal, brave, willing to die for his friends. And he did die. For me. For you and Lily both. He didn't even hesitate. Remus met Harry's eyes. Whatever else you think of him, remember that. When it mattered most, he stood his ground. Harry nodded slowly. He'd spent 16 years hearing about his parents from Andromeda, but her perspective was necessarily limited. She'd known them as fellow Order members, not as close friends. Remus offered something different. Something more personal. Tell me about Pettigrew, Harry said. Not the traitor. The friend you thought you knew. Remus's face twisted. Peter was small. Not physically, though he was that too. Small in spirit. He always needed someone to follow, someone to make him feel important. We thought it was just insecurity. We never imagined that he'd sell everyone out for power. No. We were wrong about him. Completely wrong. Remus set down his teacup with more force than necessary. I've spent years wondering what we missed. What signs were there that we ignored? But honestly, I don't think there were any. Peter hid his true self so completely that even his closest friends never saw it. Or maybe people just change. Maybe he was your friend once, and then he became something else. Maybe. That's almost worse, isn't it? The idea that anyone could change that completely. Harry thought about the horcrux in his scar. About the piece of Voldemort that had lived in his head for 17 years. About how close he might have come to becoming something dark himself, if Andromeda hadn't raised him with love. People can change in either direction, he said quietly. Good to evil, evil to good. The question is what you choose when it matters. Remus looked at him with something like wonder. You really aren't what I expected. I get that a lot. They were interrupted by the fireplace flaring green, Sirius's head appearing in the flames, expression urgent. Harry. You need to get back to Grimmauld Place. Now. What's wrong? Death Eater attack on the Ministry. Full-scale assault. Fudge is dead, half the Aura Department is dead or scattered. It's chaos. Sirius's eyes were wild. Voldemort announced himself publicly. He's back, and he's not hiding anymore. Harry was on his feet before Sirius finished speaking. Andromeda. Dora. Safe, for now. But we need everyone together. The war just went hot. I'm on my way. Harry turned to Remus. You coming? Remus was already grabbing his wand. Try to stop me. Grimmauld Place was a fortress when they arrived. Every ward Andromeda knew how to cast was active, the house practically vibrating with protective magic. Sirius met them at the door, looking haggard and battle-ready. What happened? Harry demanded. About 50 Death Eaters hit the Ministry simultaneously. Coordinated strike, they took out the Aura response teams first, then moved on the Minister's office. Sirius led them inside. By the time anyone organized a defense, Fudge was dead and the Death Eaters were retreating. They didn't try to hold the building. Just wanted to make a statement. Voldemort's declaring war publicly. More than that. He broadcast a message through every magical wireless in Britain. Said the old order was dead, that pureblood supremacy was the future, that anyone who opposed him would be destroyed. Harry found Andromeda in the drawing room, her face pale but composed. She rose when she saw him, crossing the room to take his hands. "You're safe," she breathed. "I'm fine. Are you?" "Shaken. We all are." She glanced at Dora, who was pacing by the window, her hair a stressed-out shade of grey. Dora's colleagues, half the trainee class was killed in the initial attack. She's taking it hard. She should take it hard. They were murdered. Harry squeezed Andromeda's hands, then released them. "We need to respond. Voldemort's made his move, we can't just hide." "What did you have in mind?" "First, we finish what we started. Find the Ravenclaw horcrux, destroy it. Then we hit Voldemort before he's fully consolidated power." Harry's mind was racing, pieces falling into place. Dumbledore said the Grey Lady might know where the Ravenclaw artifact is hidden. We need to get back to Hogwarts. The castle's been locked down. No one in or out without Dumbledore's permission. Then we get his permission. Or we don't and go anyway. Harry turned to Sirius. "Can you contact him?" "Already did. He's expecting you." Hogwarts felt different this time. The summer quiet had been replaced by tension, teachers patrolling the corridors, suits of armor that actually moved, gargoyles that tracked their movements with stony eyes. The castle was preparing for war. Dumbledore met them at the gates, looking worse than Harry had ever seen him. The blackened hand trembled constantly now, and there was a grayness to his skin that spoke of borrowed time. "Harry. I'm glad you're safe. We need to find the Ravenclaw horcrux. Tonight." "I agree. The Grey Lady has agreed to speak with you." Dumbledore's eyes flickered to Andromeda, Dora, Sirius, and Remus. "Your entire party. They go where I go." "Very well. Follow me." They found the Grey Lady in the Ravenclaw common room, a translucent figure drifting near the ceiling. She was beautiful in the way ghosts sometimes were, preserved at the moment of death, her features forever young even as centuries passed around her. "Harry Potter." Her voice was thin, distant. "Dumbledore said you wished to speak with me. You're Helena Ravenclaw. Your mother was Rowena Ravenclaw, one of the founders." The ghost stiffened. "Yes. What of it?" "Your mother had a diadem. Lost for centuries, according to legend. But you know where it is." Harry stepped forward, keeping his voice gentle. "I need to find it. Not for glory or power, I need to destroy it." "Destroy it?" Helena's expression flickered with something like surprise. "Why would you destroy my mother's treasure?" "Because Tom Riddle found it first. He turned it into something evil, a container for a piece of his soul." Harry watched understanding dawn in her ghostly eyes. "You gave it to him, didn't you? Years ago. He charmed you into revealing its location." Helena's form wavered, distress rippling through her. He was so handsome. So understanding. He said he wanted to learn, to preserve my mother's legacy. He lied. He used the diadem for dark magic, and now it has to be destroyed." Harry softened his tone. "I'm not blaming you. Voldemort fooled a lot of people. But I need to undo the damage he did. It's in the castle." Helena's voice was barely audible. "The Room of Hidden Things. 7th floor, opposite the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy. Walk past the wall 3 times thinking of what you need, and the door will appear." "Thank you." Helena drifted closer, her translucent hand reaching toward him but not quite touching. "You're different from him. I can feel it. He was all ambition and hunger. I'm just trying to fix things." "Yes." She smiled, sad and ancient. "Good luck, Harry Potter. The room of hidden things was chaos made architectural. Towers of junk stretched toward an invisible ceiling, broken furniture, old textbooks, dark artifacts, discarded potions, and 1,000 other things students had hidden over the centuries. Finding a single diadem in this mess would have been impossible for most people. Harry wasn't most people. The horcrux is connected to the one in my scar, he explained, leading the group through the maze of debris. I can feel it. Like a pulse in the back of my head. That's either very useful or very disturbing, Dora muttered. Both. It's definitely both. They wound through the labyrinth, Harry following the pull of dark magic, until they reached a cluttered bust of some forgotten wizard. Perched on its head, dusty but unmistakable, sat a beautiful silver diadem. There it is, Sirius breathed. Ravenclaw's diadem. Lost for 1,000 years, and we found it in a junk pile. Harry reached for it, and the world exploded. Death Eaters poured into the room from a hidden entrance, spells flying. Harry's shield came up just in time to deflect a killing curse that would have taken his head off. Ambush! Remus shouted, already returning fire. The room of hidden things became a battlefield. Debris exploded, ancient artifacts were destroyed, fire began spreading through the accumulated junk. Harry fought through the chaos, trying to reach the diadem while simultaneously keeping himself alive. He recognized some of the attackers, Dolohov, McNair, others whose faces matched photographs in Andromeda's intelligence files. And leading them, her face twisted with mad joy, was Bellatrix Lestrange. "Hello again, baby Potter," she screamed, hurling curses that shattered the ground around him. "Did you miss me?" Harry didn't waste breath on banter. He dodged, deflected, and counterattacked with everything Andromeda had taught him. Bellatrix was stronger than their last fight, she'd been practicing, preparing for this rematch, but Harry had been training too. Their duel carved a path of destruction through the room. Towers of junk collapsed. Magical artifacts detonated. The fire spread faster, feeding on centuries of accumulated magic. "You can't beat me, boy." Bellatrix laughed. "I've been fighting since before you were born. And yet I'm still standing." Harry ducked under a cruciatus and responded with a chain of curses, stunner, cutting hex, bonebreaker. Bellatrix blocked the first two but the third caught her arm, and she shrieked in fury. "Enough." She threw something at the ground, a small black orb that detonated with concussive force. Harry was blasted backward, tumbling through debris, losing sight of the diadem. When he scrambled to his feet, the room was fully engulfed. Fiend fire had been unleashed, probably by one of the Death Eaters, possibly by accident, and the cursed flames were devouring everything in their path. "We need to go." Andromeda grabbed his arm. "Harry, now. The diadem will be destroyed by the fire. Fiend fire kills horcruxes." She was pulling him toward the exit, the others already running. "Move." They fled through collapsing corridors of flame, fiend fire taking the shapes of chimeras and dragons behind them. The heat was unbearable. The smoke was blinding. Harry could barely breathe. They burst out of the room of hidden things just as the door sealed itself, trapping the cursed fire inside. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the entire wall glowed red, then white, then simply stopped. The room had contained the fire, sacrificing itself to protect the rest of the castle. "The diadem?" Sirius gasped, bent double and coughing. "Destroyed." Andromeda was checking Harry for injuries, her hands running over him with frantic efficiency. "Along with half of Hogwarts' lost history. But the horcrux is gone." Harry leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. Another horcrux down. Only Nagini and himself remained. "Bellatrix got away," he said. "She always does." Andromeda's voice was bitter. "But her time is coming. One way or another." Dumbledore appeared at the end of the corridor, moving faster than his age should have allowed. "What happened?" Death Eater ambush. They knew we were coming. Harry straightened, meeting the old man's eyes. We have a leak somewhere. Someone's feeding them information. Impossible. The only people who knew what we were doing, where we were going. And Death Eaters showed up anyway. Harry's voice was hard. Someone talked. Or someone's a spy. Dumbledore's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. We'll look into it. Do more than look into it. We can't operate if our enemies know our every move. Harry pushed off from the wall. How many horcruxes are left? 2. Nagini, and... Dumbledore's eyes lingered on Harry's scar. Then it's time. We do the resurrection stone ritual, and then we take the fight to Voldemort. Harry, Andromeda started. I know it's dangerous. But we can't wait anymore. He turned to face her, taking her hands. Every day we delay, Voldemort gets stronger. More people die. The war gets worse. I need to end this. Not alone. Never alone. You'll be there. All of you. He looked at the group assembled around him, Andromeda, Dora, Sirius, Remus. This is it. The final push. Are you with me? Always, Andromeda said. Damn right, Dora added. Sirius and Remus nodded in unison. Then let's finish this. The ritual chamber was deep beneath Hogwarts, in a space Dumbledore had never shown anyone before. Ancient stone walls covered in runes. A circular platform in the center, inscribed with patterns that hurt to look at directly. And on a pedestal at the room's heart, the cracked ring containing the resurrection stone. The ritual is simple in concept, complex in execution, Dumbledore explained, his voice echoing in the vast space. The stone will call forth the fragment of Voldemort's soul within you. You must then, release it. Reject it. Force it out of yourself and into a vessel where it can be destroyed. What vessel? Dumbledore produced a small golden object, a cup, simple and unadorned. This was enchanted specifically for this purpose. When the fragment transfers into it, I'll destroy it with fiendfire. Harry studied the cup, then the stone, then Dumbledore. And if something goes wrong? Then we improvise. As we always do. Andromeda stepped forward. I want to be in the chamber during the ritual. I don't care if it's not recommended or not safe. I'm not leaving him alone. Dumbledore looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Andromeda's expression stopped him. Very well. Everyone else waits outside. There were protests, from Dora, from Sirius, from Remus, but Harry silenced them with a look. This is hard enough without an audience. I need you to trust me. We trust you, Sirius said quietly. It's the ancient soul magic we don't trust. Fair enough. Harry managed a small smile. If something goes wrong, burn the room. Don't let that piece of Voldemort escape. Harry, promise me. A long pause. Then, reluctantly, we promise. The chamber was cold when everyone else left. Harry stood in the center of the ritual circle, Andromeda positioned just outside its boundary. Dumbledore held the resurrection stone, his blackened hand trembling. When I activate the stone, you'll feel the fragment respond. It will try to hold on, to anchor itself deeper. Dumbledore's eyes were grave. You must not let it. Focus on who you are, your memories, your loves, your identity. Push it out. I understand. And Harry. Dumbledore hesitated. Whatever happens, I want you to know, I'm sorry. For everything I planned. For the person I was prepared to let you become. You deserved better. Harry met his eyes. Just make this work. That's all the apology I need. Dumbledore nodded. He raised the stone. The world shattered. Harry felt the fragment of Voldemort's soul like a second heartbeat, suddenly amplified 1,000-fold. It was darkness and hunger and ancient hate, coiled in his mind like a serpent. And when the stone called to it, that serpent woke. "You are mine," a voice hissed inside his head. "You have always been mine. I am part of you now. We cannot be separated." Harry gritted his teeth and pushed back. Memories flooded through him, Andromeda's face the first time he called her mum. Dora's laughter. Sirius's awkward acceptance. The feeling of belonging, of being loved, of having a family that chose him. "You think love can defeat me?" The voice was mocking. "Love is weakness. I am power. I am immortality. I am, a piece of a broken man who was too afraid to die." Harry opened his eyes, when had he closed them, and found himself standing in a white void. Across from him stood something that might have been human once, a fragment of soul twisted into a vague approximation of Tom Riddle. "You don't know what you're doing," the fragment hissed. "You can't survive without me. I've been part of you since infancy, I'm woven into your very being." "No." Harry stepped forward. "You're a parasite. A hitchhiker. You've been living in my head for 17 years, but you've never been part of me. I gave you powers. The Parseltongue, the connection to the Dark Lord, you gave me nothing I wanted. And you're not staying." Harry reached out, not physically, but with something deeper, something that existed only in this space between souls, and grabbed the fragment. It screamed. The sound was beyond anything Harry had ever heard, a howl of fury and terror and disbelief. It fought, clawed, tried to sink itself deeper into his mind. But Harry was stronger. He'd been raised by love. Taught by a woman who saw him as a person, not a weapon. Supported by a sister who accepted him despite everything. Welcomed by a godfather who wanted nothing but his happiness. The fragment had none of that. It was just hunger and hate, and hunger and hate weren't enough to hold on when love was pushing back. Harry ripped it free. He came back to himself on the floor of the ritual chamber, gasping and shaking. Andromeda was beside him, holding him, her tears falling on his face. "Harry. Harry, can you hear me?" "I hear you." His voice was hoarse, barely recognizable. Did it work? Dumbledore was standing over the golden cup, which was now glowing with sickly green light. It worked. The fragment transferred successfully. He raised his wand. Fiend fire. The cursed fire consumed the cup in seconds, burning with colors that shouldn't exist. When it faded, nothing remained but ash. "It's gone," Harry breathed. "It's actually gone." He could feel the absence, a space in his mind that had always been occupied, now blessedly empty. The constant pressure, the whispers at the edge of awareness, the connection to a monster, all of it, gone. For the first time in his life, Harry's mind was entirely his own. "How do you feel?" Andromeda asked, helping him sit up. "Free." He touched his scar, finding it smooth and painless for the first time he could remember. "I feel free." Andromeda kissed him, right there in front of Dumbledore, not caring who saw. Harry kissed her back with everything he had. When they finally broke apart, Dumbledore was looking politely away, a small smile on his face. "One Horcrux remains," he said. "Nagini. And with her death, Voldemort becomes mortal. Then we kill the snake." Harry stood, pulling Andromeda with him. "And after that, we kill him." The war came to Hogwarts 3 days later. It started at dusk, with Death Eaters massing at the castle boundaries. Hundreds of them, more than anyone had expected, more than should have been possible. Voldemort had been recruiting hard during his years in hiding, building an army that now vastly outnumbered the defenders. Harry stood on the battlements, watching them gather. Beside him stood his family, Andromeda on his right, Dora on his left, Sirius and Remus behind. The Order of the Phoenix was scattered throughout the castle, along with teachers, older students who'd stayed to fight, and anyone else brave or desperate enough to make a stand. "This is it," Sirius said quietly. "Everything we've been building toward." "Scared? Terrified? You?" Harry considered the question. Below him, dark figures moved in the fading light. Among them, somewhere, was the man who'd murdered his parents, tried to murder him, and would burn the entire wizarding world if given the chance. "No," Harry said. "I'm not scared anymore." Voldemort's voice echoed across the grounds, magically amplified to shake the very stones. "Harry Potter. I know you're in there. Come out and face me, and your friends might survive. Hide, and I will destroy everyone in that castle. You have 1 hour." Harry turned to his family. "When the fighting starts, Nagini is the priority. We kill the snake, Voldemort becomes vulnerable. And then you face him alone." "No." Harry smiled. "Then we face him together. I'm done with prophecies and destined confrontations. This ends with all of us standing at the end, not just me." Andromeda took his hand. "Together, then. Always." The battle was chaos from the first curse. Death Eaters poured against the castle's wards, testing them, probing for weaknesses. Giants joined the assault, their massive clubs crashing against ancient stone. Dementors circled overhead, their presence turning the summer night cold and hopeless. Harry fought through it all, leading a strike team toward where intelligence suggested Nagini would be, near Voldemort but not at his side, protected by elite guards. Their route took them through collapsing corridors, past dueling wizards, over the bodies of people who'd been alive minutes before. The casualties were mounting. Students Harry didn't even know, dying to buy time. Teachers who'd taught generations, cut down by dark curses. Aurors, Order members, volunteers, all falling before the Death Eater tide. "There." Dora pointed through a shattered window. "The boathouse, there's something moving." Harry looked. A massive serpent was coiled in the boathouse's doorway, guarded by 3 Death Eaters. "Nagini. That's our target. Let's go." They moved through the destruction, cutting a path toward the boathouse. Sirius and Remus took point, experienced fighters who knew how to create openings. Dora watched their flanks, her aura training finally paying dividends. Andromeda stayed close to Harry, her wand never stopping. The Death Eater guards saw them coming and raised the alarm. Curses flew. Harry deflected, dodged, and returned fire with precision. One guard went down to Remus's stunner. Another fell to Sirius's cutting hex. The third retreated into the boathouse, screaming for reinforcements. Then Nagini moved. The snake was fast, faster than anything that large had a right to be. It struck at Harry with fangs dripping venom, and only his reflexes saved him. He threw himself aside, rolled, came up with his wand pointed at the serpent's head. Defindo. The cutting curse glanced off Nagini's scales like nothing. Of course, she was a horcrux, protected by soul magic. "We need the sword." Andromeda shouted. Basilisk venom, left it at Grimmauld Place. Harry was backing away from Nagini, trying to keep distance. Alternative? Fiend fire. In this confined space, we'll burn with it. Nagini struck again. Harry barely dodged, the fangs grazing his arm and leaving a line of burning pain. The venom wasn't immediately deadly, but it would weaken him fast. "Harry." Dora was at his side suddenly, pulling him back. "I've got an idea, crazy, but, do it." Dora raised her wand, closed her eyes, and transformed. Metamorph magi could change their appearance, but Dora pushed beyond that. She shifted her entire body structure, growing scales, elongating her spine, becoming something that wasn't quite human or snake but somewhere in between. Nagini hesitated, confused by the sudden appearance of something that smelled like serpent but looked like prey. It was enough. "Now!" Dora screamed, or hissed, her voice distorted by her transformed throat. Harry grabbed the fallen Death Eater's wand, adding it to his own, and channeled everything he had into a single spell. Sectum Sempra Maxima. The dark cutting curse, amplified beyond anything it was designed for, struck Nagini at the junction of skull and spine. Even Horcrux protection couldn't stop the massive blade of concentrated magic that followed. The serpent's head separated from its body. A shriek echoed across the battlefield, not from Nagini, but from Voldemort himself, feeling the death of his final Horcrux. The Dark Lord's rage washed over Harry like a physical force, nearly knocking him down. It's done. Harry grabbed Dora, who was struggling to shift back to human form. She's mortal now, we need to, Potter. The voice cut through the chaos of battle. Harry turned to find Voldemort standing at the entrance to the boathouse, his pale face twisted with fury, his wand raised. You've destroyed my treasures. Killed my familiar. Ruined 16 years of planning. Voldemort's voice was soft now, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. I was going to offer you a chance. Join me or die. But now you're just going to kill me anyway. Harry stepped forward, positioning himself between Voldemort and his family. Try it. Harry, no, Andromeda reached for him. Stay back. All of you. He met her eyes. I love you. But this is what I was born for. He stepped into the open, facing Voldemort alone. The duel that followed would become legend. Two wizards, wands raised, circling each other in the ruins of the boathouse while the battle raged around them. One the most feared dark wizard in history, the other a 17-year-old who'd been raised to end him. Voldemort struck first, a killing curse that Harry sidestepped, countering with a blasting hex that Voldemort batted aside. They traded spells at inhuman speed, the air between them filled with light and death. You're skilled, Voldemort admitted, blocking a cutting curse. Your aunt taught you well. But skill isn't enough against power. You don't know anything about power. Harry pressed his attack. You've spent your whole life running from death, so afraid of it that you tore your own soul apart. That's not power. That's weakness. Weakness? Voldemort's fury broke through his control. I am immortal, you were immortal. Not anymore. Harry smiled grimly. Nagini's dead. The Horcruxes are destroyed. All of them. You're mortal now, Tom. Just like everyone else. Voldemort's face went slack with shock. Then rage, pure, overwhelming rage, twisted his features into something barely human. Avada Kedavra. The killing curse came faster than Harry could dodge. He threw himself aside but knew he wouldn't make it, knew this was the end, and Andromeda stepped in front of him. No. Time seemed to stop. The green light struck her square in the chest. Her body jerked, then crumpled, and Harry was screaming, his heart shattering, except she wasn't dead. Andromeda lay on the ground, breathing hard but alive, a golden shimmer fading from her skin. The killing curse had been absorbed. Negated. By something Harry didn't understand. Impossible, Voldemort breathed. The killing curse cannot be blocked, blood wards. Andromeda's voice was weak but triumphant. Modified. Adapted from Lily Potter's sacrifice. I've been preparing that protection for 16 years, Tom. Since the night I took Harry from Godric's Hollow. She'd bound herself to Harry the same way Lily had. Not through death, but through love and magic and years of intention. When the killing curse came for Harry, the protection transferred, just like it had with Lily. Except this time, the person doing the sacrificing didn't have to die. You prepared a defense against the killing curse. Voldemort's voice was hollow. She loved me, Harry said, standing over Andromeda's prone form. Really loved me. Not the way you think you understand love, but actually loved me. And that love made her willing to sacrifice everything. Even her life. Love is nothing, love is everything. Harry raised his wand. And it's something you'll never have. He attacked. Without his horcruxes, without his invincibility, Voldemort was just a wizard, powerful, yes, but not unstoppable. Harry drove him back with spell after spell, channeling every lesson Andromeda had taught him, every technique, every strategy. Voldemort fought back desperately, but his movements were slowing. His connection to his horcruxes was gone, and some part of him was dying with every second. His immortality had kept him strong for decades. Without it, age and magical exhaustion were catching up fast. "You can't win," he snarled, blocking a stunning spell. "I am Lord Voldemort, I cannot be defeated by a child, you already were. Once, when I was a baby. And again, right now." Harry hit him with a disarming spell, simple, basic, the first thing any student learned. The Elder Wand, which Voldemort had taken from Dumbledore's office, flew from his hand and spun through the air. Harry caught it easily. For a moment, Voldemort just stood there, unarmed, his snake-like face frozen in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "The Elder Wand, it should have. I won it from Dumbledore." "You never won it." Dumbledore's voice came from behind Harry, the old wizard limping toward them, supported by Sirius. "Draco Malfoy disarmed me weeks ago. And Harry disarmed Draco days after that. The wand's allegiance was never yours, Tom." "No. No." Voldemort lunged for the wand, desperation overwhelming strategy. Harry stepped aside, raised his own wand, and said 2 words, Avada Kedavra. The killing curse struck Voldemort in the chest. His body fell backward, hit the ground, and was still. Silence. Harry stood over the corpse of the most feared dark wizard in history, the Elder Wand heavy in his hand, and felt nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just exhaustion, and relief, and a desperate need to check on Andromeda. He dropped to his knees beside her. "Andromeda? Andromeda, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. Is he dead?" "He's dead. It's over." She smiled weakly. "Good. Because I feel like I've been hit by the Hogwarts Express." Harry laughed, a broken, sobbing laugh, and gathered her into his arms. She was alive. She was alive, and Voldemort was dead, and the war was over. Around them, the sounds of battle were fading. Death Eaters, sensing their master's fall, were surrendering or fleeing. The defenders of Hogwarts were cheering, crying, holding each other. "You did it," Sirius said, appearing beside them. His face was streaked with blood and tears. "You actually did it." "We did it," Harry corrected. "All of us." Dora stumbled toward them, still half-serpent in form, and collapsed into a heap. "Someone, help me, shift back, everything hurts." Remus was there, gently talking her through the transformation, his own face grey with exhaustion but lit with wonder. And Dumbledore stood over Voldemort's body, his expression complicated. "It's finished," the old wizard said quietly. "At last." Harry looked up at him. "The Elder Wand. Do you want it back?" Dumbledore shook his head. "I've held it too long already. Keep it. Destroy it. Whatever you choose, it's yours now." Harry looked at the wand in his hand. The most powerful weapon in wizarding history. With it, he could do almost anything. He snapped it in half. The pieces fell to the ground, and Harry felt no regret. Power like that was a trap. He'd seen what it did to Voldemort, to Dumbledore, to everyone who sought it. Better to live free than rule enslaved. "Let's go home," he said to Andromeda. She took his hand. "Yes. Let's." 1 year later. The villa sat on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, white stone and blue shutters gleaming in the afternoon sun. Harry had found it 6 months ago, bought it with gold from his family vault, and spent the time since turning it into a home. Andromeda was on the terrace when he came out, reading a book in the shade of an olive tree. She looked up at his approach and smiled, that real, unguarded smile that still made his heart skip. "Mail came," he said, handing her a stack of letters. "Dora's complaining about her new Auror partner. Sirius is complaining about Remus complaining about Sirius. And the ministry is requesting your presence at another memorial ceremony. I'll send my regrets." "Already did. Told them you were too busy being ravished by your scandalously young lover." Andromeda laughed. "You did not." I implied heavily. Harry sat beside her, stealing a sip of her tea. "Also, Dumbledore sent a letter. He's officially retiring. Wants to know if either of us would be interested in teaching positions at Hogwarts." "Teaching?" Andromeda raised an eyebrow. "Can you imagine me teaching children? You taught me. You were special." "Exactly. No normal child could possibly meet my standards." Harry grinned. "I told him no, by the way. We're not ready to go back. Maybe in a few years." "A few years." Andromeda set down her book, turning to face him fully. "Planning that far ahead? Planning forever ahead." Harry took her hand, running his thumb over her knuckles. "You're stuck with me, Andromeda Tonks. Whatever happens, wherever we go, you're stuck with me." "That sounds less like a promise and more like a threat. Can't it be both?" She leaned forward and kissed him, soft and slow and full of everything they'd built together. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. "I suppose I can live with that." They sat together in the Mediterranean sunshine, two people who defied every expectation, broken every rule, and found each other despite everything. The wizarding world had opinions about them, of course. The Daily Prophet had run scandal pieces for months. Former Order members had expressed concern. Ted Tonks had filed for divorce and then sent a surprisingly civil letter wishing them happiness. None of it mattered. What mattered was this: the warmth of the sun, the smell of salt air, and the woman beside him who'd saved his life in every way a person could be saved. "I love you," Harry said. The words came easier now than they used to. "I love you too." Andromeda leaned her head against his shoulder. "So much it still scares me sometimes." "Good scared or bad scared?" "The best kind." She closed her eyes. "The kind that means I have something worth being scared to lose." Harry wrapped an arm around her, holding her close, and watched the sun sink toward the sea. He'd been born into tragedy, raised in secret, hunted by monsters, and forced to become something he'd never asked to be. But through it all, he'd had her. His teacher. His protector. His love. And now, finally, they had peace. No more running. No more hiding. No more fighting for survival. Just two people, building a life together, one day at a time. Dora visited a month later, her hair a cheerful blue, a bottle of expensive French wine in her hands. "Housewarming gift," she said, pressing it into Harry's hands. "Well. Late housewarming gift. I meant to bring it when you moved in, but then there was this thing with a werewolf trafficking ring, and Moody had me working double shifts, and, Dora." Harry cut off her rambling with a hug. "It's good to see you." She hugged back fiercely. "You too, you absolute disaster of a human being. How's Mum?" "Perfect. As always." "Gross." But she was smiling. "Show me the house. I want to see everything." He gave her the tour, the bedrooms, the kitchen, the study where Andromeda spent her mornings researching esoteric magic. The training room in the basement where Harry kept his skills sharp. The garden where they'd planted roses that bloomed in impossible colors. "It's beautiful," Dora said when they ended up on the terrace, watching the sunset. "Really, Harry. This is everything you deserved." I'm not sure about deserved. I am. After everything you went through, everything you sacrificed, you deserve this. Happiness. Peace. A life that's actually yours. She bumped his shoulder with hers. And so does Mum. I've never seen her like this before. So, settled. Content. I hope so. I spend every day trying to make her happy. I know. That's why I stopped being weird about it. Dora laughed at his surprised expression. What? Did you think I'd never get over it? It's been a year, Harry. I've had time to process. And honestly, watching the two of you together, seeing how much you love each other, how could I be against that? Your dad might have something to say about it. Dad's working through his own issues. He actually asked me about you last month. Whether you were treating her well. I told him you were disgustingly devoted and he seemed. I don't know. Relieved, maybe. Relieved? I think he realized that Mum was never going to be happy with him. They wanted different things, lived in different worlds. You're part of her world. You understand her in ways he never could. Dora shrugged. It doesn't make what happened less weird. But it makes sense, in a weird way. Andromeda appeared in the doorway, carrying a tray of appetizers. Are you two bonding without me? Plotting your surprise birthday party, Dora said immediately. Very secret. You didn't hear anything. My birthday isn't for 3 months. We're very organized plotters. Andromeda rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. She set down the tray and settled into Harry's side, fitting against him like she'd been designed for it. Dora watched them with an expression that mixed exasperation and fondness in equal measure. You're really happy, aren't you? Yes, Harry said simply. We really are. And looking at Andromeda, at the woman who'd saved him, raised him, loved him, and finally let herself be loved in return, Harry knew he'd never spoken truer words. Sirius came to visit 3 months after Dora, bringing Remus and a trunk full of what he called essential supplies, mostly alcohol and old photographs. They spent the evening on the terrace, drinking fire whiskey and looking at pictures of James and Lily, of the Marauders in their youth, of a time before everything went wrong. They'd be proud of you, Sirius said, his voice rough. Both of them. Whatever they'd think of, he gestured vaguely at Harry and Andromeda, this situation, they'd be proud of who you became. You think so? I know so. James talked about you constantly before you were born. Kept saying his son was going to change the world. Sirius laughed. Turns out he was right. You did change the world. Just, differently than anyone expected. I had help. You had family. That's more important than help. Sirius raised his glass. To family. However weird it turns out to be. They drank together, and the ghosts of the past felt a little lighter. Later, when Sirius and Remus had passed out in the guest rooms and the night was dark and quiet, Harry stood on the terrace alone, looking at the stars. Andromeda found him there, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Can't sleep, she asked. Just thinking. About what? About everything. The war. The people we lost. The future. He turned in her arms, facing her. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. For another threat to emerge. Another monster to fight. And I'm starting to accept that maybe it's actually over. Maybe we actually get to just live. Andromeda cupped his face in her hands. We earned this, Harry. Both of us. We fought and sacrificed and survived, and now we get to rest. You're allowed to let go. I'm trying. I know. She kissed him softly. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Harry pulled her closer, burying his face in her hair, breathing in the scent that meant home. I love you, he said. I love you too. Her voice was warm against his neck. Now come to bed. Tomorrow, we can talk about planting that herb garden you mentioned. And the day after that, we can discuss whether Dora's inevitable next visit will result in property damage. Probably. Almost certainly. She took his hand, leading him inside. But that's a problem for future U.S. Present us has better things to do. Harry followed her, and the night embraced them, and somewhere far away, the world kept turning without needing him to save it. 5 years later. The villa had grown. An extra wing for visitors. A greenhouse full of magical plants. A small cottage down the path where Dora stayed when she visited, which was often, she transferred to the French Magical Law Enforcement Office to be closer. Harry stood in the garden, watching the sun rise over the sea, and felt complete. The years had been kind. The war had faded into history, remembered but no longer painful. The wizarding world had moved on, building something new on the ashes of the old. And Harry and Andromeda had built their own world, small and private and full of love. He heard her approaching before he saw her, the soft pad of bare feet on stone, the rustle of silk robes. "You're up early," Andromeda said, slipping her hand into his. "Couldn't sleep. Bad dreams?" "Good ones, actually." He turned to face her. She was beautiful in the dawn light, age touching her face with grace rather than cruelty. "I dreamed about us. 20 years from now. Still here. Still together. That sounds like a good dream." It was. He kissed her knuckles. "I want it to be a prophecy." Andromeda smiled, that soft, real smile that still made his heart skip after all these years. "Then let's make it one." They stood together in the garden as the sun rose, two people who defied fate and found each other against all odds. The world would continue to turn. People would live and die and love and hate. Empires would rise and fall. Magic would flow and ebb. But here, in this small corner of the world, two people had found something precious, a love that transcended age and expectation and the judgment of others. And they held on to it with everything they had. The end. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.